Kevin stood behind the lectern at Grant County Civic Hall with my father's eulogy in both hands. He looked comfortable up there. That was the first thing I noticed. There were employees from Foster Hardware in the front rows, suppliers near the side wall, and relatives filling the folding chairs behind them. My mother sat beside me in black, holding a tissue she hadn't used. Alan Steele, the funeral director, stood near the back doors. Kevin lowered his eyes to the typed pages. "I wrote this last night," he said. "I wanted Dad's friends to hear what he meant to this family." People turned toward him with those soft, approving expressions they'd been giving him all morning. Kevin paused long enough to accept them. Then he started reading. The first sentence came from my notebook. So did the second. "My name is Sarah Foster, and I'm 36 years old. If you've ever carried a family quietly while someone else received the credit, I know how confusing that can be. Please like this video and subscribe." I didn't interrupt Kevin. I sat with my hands folded over my purse while he read a story about my father teaching me to count change at the hardware counter. Kevin changed one word. He said "us" where I had written me. Nobody caught it. Why would they? Kevin had been presented as my father's natural successor for most of his adult life. He represented the family. I repaired whatever went wrong after he represented it. On the lectern, beneath the pages Kevin had already turned, was one page he hadn't seen. It wasn't typed. I could see the edge of the blue ink from my chair. Kevin smiled at something I had written about Dad's habit of keeping bent nails in a coffee can, because he believed every piece of metal could still be useful. Several people laughed quietly. My mother touched my wrist. "See?" she whispered. "He's doing fine." I looked at her hand until she removed it. 3 days earlier, I had been in the office at Foster Hardware when Diane called to tell me my father was dead. The store sits at 218 Juniper Street in Silver City, in a low tan building with a faded green awning. The front windows always collect dust along the bottom, no matter how often we clean them. From my desk, I could hear the rattle of shopping carts and the sharp little bell over the front door. That morning, I'd been comparing a delivery invoice against what had actually arrived. We'd ordered 12 boxes of galvanized screws. The supplier had sent 10 and billed us for 12. My phone rang beside the keyboard. "Hi, Mom, Sarah." She said my name in a flat voice. I put down my pen. "What happened? It's your father." There was a pause, and then she said, "He's gone." I looked through the office window at the sales floor. One of our employees was helping a customer choose a pipe fitting. The customer held up 2 pieces while they talked. Everything outside the office continued moving. "When?" I asked. "About 20 minutes ago." I called Kevin first, but he didn't answer. "Are you at home?" "Yes." "Is someone there with you?" "No." "The ambulance people left. I'm coming." I stood, grabbed my keys, and stopped with my hand on the office doorknob. We had a shipment due before noon, 2 employees at lunch, and a payroll correction waiting on my approval. I called Kevin. He answered on the 4th ring. "Hey, I'm driving," he said. "Dad died." There was silence. "What? Mom just called me. She's alone at the house." "Oh, God, I need you to go there. I'm on my way to meet Glenn." Glenn managed a building supply warehouse outside town. Kevin had been trying to sell him a bulk order for weeks. "Cancel it," I said. "I can't just cancel when I'm almost there." "Then call Mom." "I will. Give me a minute. She needs someone with her. So go. I have to hand off the store first." He exhaled into the phone. "Sarah, it's Dad." "I know." "Then why are you talking about the store?" "Because somebody had to. I didn't say that. There was no point." "I'll leave as soon as I can," I told him. "Call her now." I ended the call and went to the front counter. I asked our floor supervisor, Martin, to cover the shipment. He took one look at my face and stopped asking questions. "I can handle it," he said. "The invoice is wrong. Don't sign until they change the quantity." "Got it." I went back into the office and approved the payroll correction. Then I pulled a ring of keys from my desk drawer and opened the small safe behind the filing cabinet. The safe held the papers I couldn't leave in an unlocked drawer: insurance records, payroll backup codes, tax documents, and the corporate ownership file in a plain gray folder. I moved that folder aside and took out Dad's health insurance information. Even then, with my mother waiting and my father gone, I put the corporate file back in the same place and checked the lock twice. That habit mattered later. At the time, it was just one more thing I did without anybody noticing. My parents lived in a one-story house off Juniper Street, less than 10 minutes from the store. Kevin's truck wasn't in the driveway when I arrived. Diane sat at the kitchen table in her robe. Dad's coffee cup was still beside the sink. It had a brown line around the inside. I put my bag down and sat across from her. "Where is he?" I asked. "They took him. I mean Kevin." "Oh." She looked toward the hallway. He called. "He's coming." "Did he say when?" "He had an appointment." I nodded once. My mother reached for a stack of mail and squared the edges against the table. "Your father wasn't feeling well last night," she said. "I told him to call the doctor. He said he was tired. Was he having chest pain?" "I don't know." "Trouble breathing?" "Sarah, I don't know." He went to bed. I stopped questioning her. She looked smaller than usual, but not fragile. Diane had never liked being treated as fragile. What she liked was having someone nearby who would take over without requiring her to admit she needed help. I made tea she didn't drink. I called Alan Steele because he had handled my grandmother's funeral years earlier. I found Dad's identification and the folder where Diane kept their insurance information. Kevin arrived an hour later wearing a blue button-down shirt and clean boots. He came through the kitchen and put both hands on Mom's shoulders. "I'm here," he said. She stood and folded into him. Kevin looked over her head at me. "Did you call anybody?" "I called Alan Steele. We're meeting him this afternoon. What about family?" "Not yet." He frowned as if I had missed something obvious. "You should start calling." Mom sat down again. Kevin took Dad's chair at the head of the table. "Dad wanted the Civic Hall," he said. "He mentioned it after Uncle Ray's service." "I remember," I said. "We'll need enough seating. A lot of business people will come. We can ask Alan about the hall, and the store needs to close." "For the funeral, yes." Kevin leaned back. "Probably through the weekend. Out of respect. The staff still needs to be paid, and we have contractor orders scheduled." His face tightened. "Our father just died, and 15 people still work for us. For the family," Mom said. I looked at her. "What?" "15 people work for the family," she said. "This isn't the time to make everything sound so cold." I hadn't made it cold. I had made it specific. That difference never mattered much in our kitchen. Kevin pulled out his phone. "I'll put something on the store page." "No," I said. "Let me notify the staff first. It's just an announcement. They shouldn't learn about Dad from social media." Mom gave me a tired look. "Don't argue today." "I'm not arguing. I'm asking him to wait." Kevin set his phone face down. "Fine. You handle it." That was how he gave me work. He acted as though withdrawing himself was a favor. Alan met us at the Civic Hall that afternoon. He was 60, with silver hair and a dark suit that fit him well enough to make everyone else feel underdressed. He spoke to Mom gently without using the low, artificial voice some people use around grief. He walked us through the main room and showed us where the lectern would stand. The hall smelled faintly of floor wax and coffee. Stacked chairs lined one wall. "We can arrange the room for about 200, Alan said. "Will that be enough?" Kevin looked around. Dad knew everyone. Alan glanced at me. "We can keep extra chairs ready." "That'll be fine," I said. We discussed flowers, music, the reception table, and the photograph that would go near the entrance. Every time Alan asked a question, Mom looked at me first. Every time we reached a choice that people would see, she turned to Kevin. "Who will speak?" Alan asked. "Kevin," Mom said. Kevin lowered his head modestly. I looked at her. "We haven't discussed that. People expect the son." Alan's expression didn't change, but his pen stopped. "I can speak too," I said. Mom pressed her lips together. "I don't think we need a parade of speeches. I wasn't suggesting a parade." "Sarah." She said my name softly. That was usually the warning before she made my exclusion sound considerate. "You'll already be handling so much," she continued. "The store, the arrangements, the reception. Let Kevin do this for his father. For his father. As if Peter Foster hadn't been mine too." Kevin rubbed his thumb over the edge of his phone. "I'll say a few words," he said. "Nothing long." Alan wrote Kevin's name on his pad. "Will you prepare your own remarks?" Kevin looked at me. That look lasted less than a second. I still understood it. Mom understood it too. "Sarah can help," she said. "She knows all the old stories." "I can give him a few notes," I said. "You're better with words," Kevin said. "Just put something together and I'll make it sound natural." I stared at him. He smiled as if we were sharing a harmless joke. Alan cleared his throat. "If you provide the final copy, I'll place it in the lectern folder before the service." "Send it to me," Kevin said. Alan looked between us. "I'd prefer one completed packet from whoever prepares it. It avoids missing pages." "I'll bring it," I said. Kevin shrugged. "Whatever works." On the way out, Mom caught my arm near the glass doors. "Don't make this difficult," she whispered. "I haven't. You know what I mean. I did." She meant Kevin should be visible, and I should be useful. That was the arrangement. It had been the arrangement for years. Back at the store, I gathered the employees near the paint counter. Dad's old framed photograph hung behind me. In it, he stood outside the original storefront with his sleeves rolled to his elbows. I told everyone he had died that morning. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Martin asked whether we were closing. "We'll close for the funeral," I said. "I'll confirm the time tomorrow. Your schedules and pay won't change." A few shoulders lowered. That was my tiny victory that day. I couldn't stop my family from assigning me every unpleasant task, but I could keep 15 people from wondering whether grief would cost them a paycheck. Kevin arrived while I was still answering questions. He waited until the employees had started walking away. Then he stepped beside Dad's photograph. "I'll talk to everyone tomorrow," he said. "About what?" "The transition." "What transition?" He gave me a patient smile. "Sarah, come on. People are going to wonder what happens now. They already know what happens tomorrow. They come to work. I mean, after that." I watched him for a moment. Kevin had held a salaried position at the store for years. He handled outside sales when he felt like it, missed staff meetings, and submitted mileage totals without dates. Dad still introduced him to suppliers as the future of Foster Hardware. I was the one who checked the bank balance every morning. "What exactly are you planning to tell them?" I asked. "That they don't need to worry. The business stays with the family. It already does." His smile faded slightly. "You know what I mean?" "No, I want you to say it." Martin was still near the end of the counter, sorting keys onto a rack. I could tell he was listening, though he kept his eyes down. Kevin glanced toward him. "Not here," he said. "You brought it up here." He picked up a store pen, rolled it between his fingers, and set it back down. "Dad and I talked," he said. "He wanted me ready." "Ready for what?" "To take over." He walked away before I answered. That evening, after the store closed, I sat alone in the office. Dad's empty coffee mug was on the corner of my desk. He had left it there the previous afternoon. I unlocked the safe. The gray corporate folder was exactly where I had placed it that morning. I didn't take it out. I rested my hand on it, closed the safe, and returned the keys to my drawer. Then I opened a plain notebook and wrote 2 questions on a clean page. What did Dad promise Kevin? What did Mom believe would happen now? Under those questions, I wrote 1 sentence for myself. Do not answer either of them until they show you. I closed the notebook and put it in the top drawer. The office phone rang before I could stand. It was Diane. "I need you to come back," she said. "What happened?" "Nothing happened. I can't find your father's blue suit. Did you check the hall closet?" "I checked everywhere. I'll come after I lock up and bring something for dinner. I haven't eaten." "Okay." She paused. "Kevin likes that chicken from Adobe Springs." I looked at the dark sales floor through the office window. "Is Kevin there?" "He went home to shower. Then he can pick up his own dinner." "Sarah, please." I can't deal with tension tonight. There was always tension when I declined something. The request itself never counted. "I'll bring enough for everyone," I said. "Thank you." I stopped at the restaurant, bought 3 chicken dinners, and drove to the house. Kevin's truck was in the driveway by then. The blue suit was hanging in the hall closet. It was behind a tan jacket. Mom watched me pull it out. That wasn't there before. It was behind this. I moved that jacket twice. Kevin came down the hallway wearing sweatpants and one of Dad's old college shirts. "What are we eating?" I carried the food into the kitchen. Mom followed me with the suit draped over her arms. "The sleeves might need pressing," she said. "I can take it to the cleaner tomorrow, and his white shirt. Put them together." Kevin opened the restaurant bag. "You got mashed potatoes?" "That's what comes with the chicken. I usually get the green chili rice. You can switch with me." He did. He didn't ask whether I wanted the mashed potatoes. We ate at the kitchen table. Dad's chair stayed empty this time. Kevin sat beside Mom and talked about who might attend the funeral. "Gary from Southwest Fasteners will come," he said. "He and Dad were close. They hadn't spoken in over a year," I said. "He'll still come." "He probably will, and I should call the regional people. Dad would want the business represented." Mom nodded. "That's right." I cut a piece of chicken and moved it around my plate. I already notified our regular suppliers. Kevin looked up. "All of them?" "The ones we currently use. I know people you don't know." "Then call those people." His fork tapped the plate. "You don't have to make everything a contest. I just agreed with you." Mom sighed. "Can we get through one meal?" I put my fork down. Kevin kept eating. A few minutes later, Mom said, "The obituary needs to go to the paper tomorrow." "I'll write it tonight," I said. "Kevin should be listed first." I waited. She looked at me as if I had asked a question. "In the family section," she explained, "he's the oldest. List us both." "Of course I'm listing you both. I'm just saying there's an order." Kevin reached for my dinner roll. "You eating this?" I slid it toward him. After dinner, Mom handed me a pile of unopened mail. She had been leaving their bills for me to sort for years. Dad used to handle most of them, but when his workload started declining, the household paperwork came to me along with the store paperwork. "The electric bill is in there," she said. "I think it's due. Do you have your checkbook? Can't you do it online?" "I can show you how." "Not tonight." I looked at the envelopes. Mom had just lost her husband. That was true. It was also true that she had refused to learn the bill payment system every time I offered. "I'll pay it," I said. Kevin leaned against the counter with a second dinner roll in his hand. "You're good at that stuff." "So are you." He laughed. "No, I'm not." He said it like an endearing fact about himself. I took the mail into Dad's small study. The room had a narrow desk, 2 metal filing cabinets, and shelves crowded with old hardware catalogs. A framed photograph of Kevin and Dad at a supplier golf tournament sat beside the lamp. There was no photograph of me. I had noticed that years ago. I still noticed it every time. I opened Dad's laptop and paid the electric bill from the household checking account. Then I paid the water bill, which was already 3 days late. Mom stood in the doorway while I wrote the confirmation numbers on the envelopes. "Can you call the bank tomorrow?" she asked. "I don't know if I need to do anything. We'll make a list. You know how all this works." "I know some of it." "Your father trusted you with the details." That should have sounded like praise. From Diane, it was usually a job description. Kevin appeared behind her. "Did Dad keep any stories in here?" he asked. "For the speech." "He kept notes from store events," I said. "Good. Find the best ones." Mom turned toward me. "You should start on that tonight, too." I looked at the bills, the funeral clothes, and the restaurant containers still open on the kitchen table. "What is Kevin doing tonight?" "Calling people," she said. Kevin lifted his phone as proof. I almost refused. Then I looked past them at the photograph beside the lamp. Dad's hand rested on Kevin's shoulder. They were both smiling into the sun. "I'll look for the notes," I said. That was my part in the pattern. I knew it even while I was doing it. They asked because I said yes. I said yes because being needed was the closest thing I had to being chosen. Then I resented them for knowing the difference. I hadn't always seen it that clearly. When I started running the store's daily operations in 2014, Dad called it temporary. He had been falling behind on supplier accounts. Inventory counts were wrong, special orders were disappearing, and 2 employees had quit within a month. I was working for an office supply company then. Dad asked me to come by after work and help him sort invoices. The first night, I found 3 overdue statements under a stack of catalogs. "Did you call these people?" I asked. Dad sat behind the same desk I use now. "I've been busy. They're going to place us on credit hold. I know how suppliers work." "Then you know we have to call tomorrow." He leaned back and studied me. "You always did like telling people what to do. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm showing you the red notice." The next morning, I took time off from my regular job. I called each supplier, arranged partial payments, and got 2 credit holds delayed. Dad bought me lunch from a taco truck. "You've got a head for this," he said. It was one of the nicest things he had said to me in months. I kept coming back. Within 6 weeks, I was opening the store most mornings. By the end of that year, I had left my other job. I rebuilt the ordering system, made weekly schedules, and started checking every incoming invoice before we paid it. Kevin was already at Foster Hardware, at least officially. He handled outside sales. Some weeks that meant visiting contractors. Other weeks it meant taking long lunches with people who might someday place an order. At the store anniversary dinner the following spring, Dad stood in front of the staff and thanked Kevin for stepping up as the next generation. Kevin raised his glass. I was sitting near the kitchen door with a list of employees who hadn't received their meal tickets. After the dinner, Dad found me loading leftover table decorations into my car. "Good night," he said. "You too." Everything went well. It did. He stood there for a moment. "You did a nice job organizing it." I waited for more. There wasn't more. Still, I drove home feeling pleased. He had noticed. I thought noticing was the first step towards saying it where other people could hear. For years, I kept waiting for the second step. In Dad's study, I opened the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet and found a folder marked Store Events. There were programs, old advertisements, photographs, and several yellow legal pads covered in his blocky handwriting. Kevin came into the room while I was reading. "Anything good?" "Maybe." He picked up a photograph from the desk. It showed Dad standing beside a delivery truck. "Use this story," Kevin said. "What story?" "The truck. What about it?" He stared at the photograph. "You know, when it broke down. That happened more than once. The funny time." I waited for him to continue. He set the photograph down. "Ask Mom. She'll remember. You're giving the speech, and you're helping. I need something you actually remember about him." His face changed. It wasn't grief. It was irritation. "I remember plenty. Tell me one thing. He taught me how to sell. When? All the time." "What did he say?" Kevin rubbed his jaw. "Sarah, I'm not doing an interview. I can't write your memories if you won't give me any. Then write family memories." He left the room. I heard him tell Mom, "She's making this into work." Mom answered, "I'll talk to her." I returned to the legal pads. Most of Dad's notes were ordinary. Names of suppliers, raffle prizes, reminders about chairs and coffee. On one pad, I found a draft from the store's annual dinner 5 years earlier. Dad had written 3 lines about Kevin. "Kevin has built strong relationships with our customers. He understands that this business is about people. I'm proud to see him carrying the Foster name forward." I remembered that speech. Dad had read those lines almost exactly. Farther down the page, beneath a list of employee names, was another sentence. Sarah corrected purchasing, restored supplier terms, and kept payroll current during our worst year. A thick black line had been drawn through it. I held the page closer to the desk lamp. The sentence was still readable. Dad had known. That was the small truth I recovered in his study. He hadn't overlooked my work. He had written it down, considered saying it, and removed it before anyone heard. Mom came in carrying 2 coffee mugs. "Did you find something?" I turned the pad face down, just event notes. She set one mug beside me. "Kevin's upset. He couldn't give me a single memory for the speech. He's grieving. So am I. I know that." She said it quickly, as if speed made it more convincing. I wrapped both hands around the mug. "Why does Kevin have to give the eulogy? We settled this." "No, you decided it. Your father wanted him to represent the family. Did Dad say that about his funeral? Mom looked away. Not specifically. Then where did it come from? Some things don't need to be said. That answer could cover almost anything in our family. Mom sat in Dad's chair. Your brother has always needed more encouragement, she said. You're capable. You don't need people clapping every time you do something. I'm not asking anyone to clap. Then what are you asking for? I looked at the legal pad beneath my hand. I could have shown her the crossed-out sentence. I could have asked why Dad had praised Kevin at that dinner and erased me. Instead, I said, nothing. Her shoulders relaxed. Good. Because we need to stay together right now. There it was. Together meant I kept things running while Kevin stood where everyone could see him. Mom drank her coffee and started listing tasks. I needed to confirm flowers. I needed to send the obituary. I needed to ask the store employees who planned to attend. I needed to check whether the Civic Hall had enough serving tables. When she finished, I asked, "What are you doing tomorrow?" She blinked. "I'll be here." "Doing what?" "I just lost my husband." "I know. I'm asking because Alan needs decisions from you. You know what I like. That isn't the same as deciding." Her mouth tightened. "Why are you acting like this?" I looked down at the unpaid medical statement still sitting beside the laptop. "I'm tired. We're all tired." I didn't answer. Kevin called from the living room. "Mom, do we have any beer?" She stood. "Check the garage refrigerator." I already did. Mom looked at me. I almost got up. That was the part that stayed with me. Not that she looked. Not that Kevin asked. It was the movement my body started making before I had even decided. My hand left the coffee mug. My chair shifted back an inch. Then I stopped. "There's a convenience store 2 streets over," I called. Kevin appeared in the doorway. "You're going out anyway, aren't you?" "No. I thought you were taking Dad's suit." "Tomorrow." He looked at Mom. She gave him a small, helpless shrug. Kevin picked up his keys from the kitchen counter. "Fine." The front door closed behind him. Mom stared at me. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." It was the first assignment I had refused since she called me that morning. It was a 6-pack of beer, and Kevin had to drive 4 minutes to buy it himself. My pulse was still beating hard when I sat down again. Mom went to bed shortly after that. I stayed in the study and finished the obituary. I listed Kevin and me in the same sentence. I didn't put him first. Before leaving, I returned to the yellow pad. I took a photograph of the crossed-out sentence with my phone. Then I placed the pad exactly where I had found it. Outside, the porch light cast a pale square across the driveway. Kevin's truck was gone again. My car was the only one there. I sat behind the wheel and read Dad's sentence on my screen. He had known what I did. The question now was why my parents had both worked so hard to keep everyone else from knowing it. The next morning, I went to the store before sunrise. The parking lot was empty. I unlocked the front door, turned off the alarm, and left the sign facing closed. The building always sounded different before the staff arrived. The refrigerator near the register hummed. Metal shelf brackets clicked as the temperature changed. I carried my coffee into the office and opened the safe. This time, I took out the gray corporate folder. The stock certificate was inside, along with the shareholder ledger and the agreement Dad and I had signed 5 years earlier. I read every page even though I knew what they said. Dad had transferred every share to me. There was no future ownership left for Kevin to inherit. There hadn't been for 5 years. Dad had asked me to keep the transfer private. He said Kevin would be embarrassed if employees knew the business had been sold to me while he was still walking around calling himself the future president. At the time, keeping quiet seemed temporary. Then Dad kept introducing Kevin the same way. Mom kept talking about the store as Kevin's future. Every time I asked Dad when we were going to tell them, he found a reason to wait. After the busy season. After Kevin closes that big account. After your mother's birthday. Eventually, I stopped asking. I put the ownership file back and locked the safe. Then I opened the store email. Dad still had an address with his name on it, though he rarely used it during his final year. Most messages sent there automatically copied to the general office inbox. I searched Kevin's name. There were dozens of ordinary emails. Sales leads, mileage reports, questions he could have answered himself. One message from the previous month had the subject line office transition. Kevin had written, "Dad, we need to settle when I move into your office. People are confused about who they report to. I think we should make it official before the next supplier meeting." Dad's reply came the following afternoon. "Not yet. Sarah has things organized. We'll discuss it later." That wasn't a promise. It wasn't a refusal either. I searched for messages containing the words president, ownership, and successor. Nothing. I checked Dad's calendar. Most of his recent appointments were medical visits or lunches. 2 weeks earlier, he had eaten with Gary from Southwest Fasteners. Kevin had mentioned Gary at dinner. I wrote the date in my notebook. At 7, Martin arrived and tapped on the glass. I let him in. "You're early," he said. "So are you. Couldn't sleep." He removed his cap and held it against his chest. "How's your mom?" "She has a list for me." He gave a short nod. Martin had worked at the store long enough to understand that answer. I unlocked the register drawers while he started the coffee near the break room. When he came back, I asked, "Did Kevin talk to you yesterday?" Martin looked toward the office. "About your dad?" "About the business." He rubbed the back of his neck. "He said things were going to change." "What things?" "He didn't say exactly." "Did he tell you he was taking over?" Martin hesitated. That's what it sounded like. "What were his words?" He said, "When I'm in charge, we won't be counting every minute people spend with customers." I almost smiled. Kevin didn't count those minutes now. "Anything else?" He asked for the master key. "Did you give it to him?" "No." That was the useful answer. "Why not?" "Because you're the one who signs out keys." "Thank you." Martin studied my face. "Was I supposed to?" "No. You did exactly right." He relaxed slightly. "Kevin acted like your dad had already approved it." "When did he ask?" "Last Thursday. Dad had still been alive last Thursday." "Did he say why he needed it?" "He said he'd be using the office more." I took out my notebook and wrote down the date. Martin watched me. "Is something wrong?" "I don't know yet. If Kevin asks you to change a schedule, release inventory or give him access to anything. Send him to me. That might make him mad." "I know. You want me to tell him you said it?" "Yes." Martin nodded. "Okay." That deliberate move worked before the store even opened. At 8:15, Kevin came through the front door carrying a cardboard tray with 2 coffees. He wore dark jeans, a pressed shirt, and the brown boots Dad had given him for Christmas. He handed 1 coffee to Martin. "Morning." Martin accepted it, then looked at me. Kevin noticed. "What?" "Nothing," Martin said. Kevin walked into the office without knocking. "You went through Dad's email?" he asked. "I was sitting at my desk with the obituary open on the computer. It's a company account. I got a notification that someone signed in. You set your email as the recovery address?" "Dad asked me to help him with the password." "Did he?" Kevin placed his coffee beside my keyboard. "What are you looking for?" "Supplier contacts. I can handle those. I already did." He leaned over my shoulder and read the obituary. "You put yourself first." I looked at the screen. The sentence read, "Peter is survived by his wife, Diane, his daughter, Sarah, and his son, Kevin." I listed us by first name. Usually the son comes first. According to who? It just looks strange. Then don't stare at it. He pulled the spare chair away from the wall and sat down. "I need Dad's office." "This is Dad's office." "You know what I mean?" "Yes." "You mean my office." He looked around. My files filled the shelves. My calendar hung beside the door. My name was on the employee notices pinned to the board. Dad had kept calling it his office long after I became the person using it every day. I had let him. The founder title mattered to him. The room came with it. Kevin rested 1 ankle on his knee. "I'm not moving you out today. You're not moving me out at all. Can we not do this right now? You came in here and asked for my office. I said I need Dad's office." "For what?" "To lead the business." There was no hesitation that time. I closed the obituary document. "Show me the transition plan." "What?" "You said Dad wanted you ready. Show me what he gave you." It wasn't paperwork. Then tell me exactly what he said. Kevin lowered his foot. You think I'm lying? I'm asking what he said. He said the store would be my responsibility. When? Over lunch. Which lunch? His eyes narrowed. Why are you interrogating me? Because you asked an employee for the master key while Dad was still alive. Kevin's face went still. Martin told you. I asked him. I needed access. To what? Everything. That isn't an answer. He stood. You know, Dad warned me you'd do this. Do what? Use details to make yourself important. I waited for him to continue. He picked up his coffee. He knew you wouldn't handle the transition well. What transition? Kevin shook his head. I'm not fighting with you before his funeral. He left the office and shut the door hard enough to rattle the glass. I sat still until I heard him speaking to Martin near the front counter. His voice was light again. He was asking about a contractor order as though our conversation hadn't happened. I reopened the obituary and sent it to the newspaper exactly as I had written it. Then I called Gary. He answered from his truck. I could hear road noise behind him. Sarah, I heard about Peter. I'm sorry. Thank you. He was a good man. I was going to call, but I didn't want to bother Diane. The service will be at Grant County Civic Hall. I'll send you the details. I'll be there. I also need to check something on the store account. Sure. Has anyone asked you to change our primary contact? The road noise faded. He had either slowed down or pulled over. Kevin mentioned it. When? Lunch with your dad. A couple weeks ago. Was Dad there when Kevin asked? Yeah, what did Kevin say? He said he'd be handling the account soon, wanted pricing and terms going directly to him. What did Dad say? Gary was quiet for a moment. Peter said you handled purchasing. Anything else? He said there was plenty of time to work out titles. That sounded like Dad. Did you change the contact? No. Our system requires a signed form from the account officer. That's you. Did Kevin send a form? He sent an email yesterday morning asking me to make the change effective Monday. I looked at the office door. Dad had died yesterday morning. What time? A little before noon. That was while I was at Mom's house calling relatives and arranging the meeting with Alan. Did he say Dad was dead? No. Did he say why Monday? He wrote that the leadership transition was moving forward sooner than expected. My grip tightened around the phone. Gary lowered his voice. I thought Peter was sick. I didn't know he had passed until later. Forward me that email. Sarah, am I stepping into family business here? You're helping me keep our supplier account accurate. All right. And please don't change anything unless the request comes from me. You're still the account officer. Nothing changes without your signature. Thank you. The email arrived before we ended the call. Kevin had written it at 11:48, less than 3 hours after Mom found Dad unresponsive. He hadn't called the relatives Mom asked him to call. He hadn't come directly to the house. He had found time to contact a supplier and set Monday as the beginning of his leadership. I printed the email and placed it inside my eulogy notebook. The front bell rang. I heard Kevin welcome a customer with more energy than he had shown all week. A few minutes later, he appeared in my doorway. Gary just called me. That was quick. What did you say to him? I told him not to change the account contact. You made me look stupid. You asked him to make an unauthorized change. Dad was sitting there when we discussed it. And Dad told him I handled purchasing. He said we would work out titles. That doesn't give you my account access. Kevin stepped into the office and lowered his voice. Why are you saying my access like you own the place? I met his eyes. He honestly didn't know. For a second, I almost told him. The gray folder was less than 6 feet away. I could have opened the safe, placed the stock certificate on the desk, and ended that part of the argument. Then I remembered Dad's crossed-out sentence. I remembered Mom saying some things didn't need to be said. They had been deciding what Kevin should believe for years. I wanted to know how far they had taken it before I corrected him. Because I'm the account officer, I said. Kevin gave a short laugh. For now, Monday isn't going to change that. We'll see. He walked out. I called Martin into the office and showed him the email. He read it once. "He sent this yesterday?" "Yes." Martin looked toward the front of the store. Kevin was helping an older man compare drill bits. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "Nothing dramatic. Keep the key log with you. Don't approve schedule changes from Kevin. Don't give him passwords." What if he tells people he's in charge? Tell them operational questions still come to me. Martin handed back the email. All right, that protected the store for the day. It also showed me the problem was wider than one conversation in Mom's kitchen. Kevin had already given himself a start date. I spent the next hour confirming that no other supplier contacts had changed. Then I reviewed the bank permissions, alarm codes, and payroll access. Everything remained under my control. At noon, Mom called. "The newspaper sent me the obituary," she said. "I know. You put yourself before Kevin. I put our first names in alphabetical order. That's not how families do it. It's already submitted." She went silent. I waited for her to mention Dad. She didn't. "Kevin says you're blocking him at the store," she said. "I blocked an account change he wasn't authorized to make. Your father wanted Kevin involved. He is involved. He earns a salary. That's a nasty way to describe your brother. It's an accurate way to describe an employee. Sarah, this isn't like you." I looked through the office glass. Kevin was leaning against the paint counter, telling Martin a story. Martin wasn't laughing. "What did Dad promise him?" I asked. "You need to stop asking that. Why? Because your father isn't here to defend himself. Defend himself from what?" Mom breathed into the phone. "The funeral is in 3 days. Please focus on that. I am focused." Then finished the speech. She ended the call. I wrote the time beside her name in my notebook. Under it, I added Monday. That morning, I had wanted proof that Kevin was repeating something Dad had actually said. By lunch, I knew the answer was more complicated. Dad had let Kevin discuss titles in front of a supplier. He had not given him authority. Kevin had taken the space between those two facts and started issuing orders from it. I turned to a clean page and began listing every place where his assumed transition could touch the business before Monday. The list began with keys, passwords, supplier contacts, payroll, the alarm system, and the store credit card. Kevin had access to customer records because he needed them for sales. He had a key to the front door and a code that opened the building during business hours. He did not have access to payroll, company banking, or the safe. I checked each permission separately. His old login to the inventory system still included a manager setting Dad had approved years earlier. Kevin could change item prices, issue large refunds, and mark inventory as damaged without a second approval. I removed that setting. I didn't suspend his account. He still had everything required to do his job. I just took away authority he had never used responsibly. 10 minutes later, he appeared in the office. "What did you do to my login?" I corrected the permissions. "I'm locked out of manager functions. You're in outside sales." Dad gave me manager access. Dad also gave the same password to 3 people. "I'm cleaning it up. Put it back." "No." He stared at me. I kept my hands on the keyboard. "I need to be able to make decisions," he said. "What decision are you trying to make? That isn't the point. It's exactly the point." I tried to approve a price adjustment for Paulson Construction. "How large?" He looked toward the ceiling. "About 15%. Our margin on that order is 11. It's a relationship account. It's a losing account if you discount it 15%. They buy all year. Then send me the order and I'll price it." Kevin stepped closer to the desk. "I'm not asking you to check my work. You are if you want the company to lose money." His jaw moved once. "You've been waiting for this. For what? For Dad to be gone so you could take control?" I looked at him for several seconds. The accusation was so far behind reality that I didn't know where to begin. "Send me the Paulson order," I said. He left without replying. The order arrived by email 4 minutes later. I adjusted the discount to 8%, called the customer, and explained that we could hold that price if he accepted delivery in one shipment. He agreed. The sale stayed profitable. Kevin still received credit for it. I sent him the confirmation. He didn't respond. That was the first practical boundary I set after Dad died. It worked because the system recognized my authority even when my family pretended not to. By mid-afternoon, I had changed every shared password and printed a new key log. Martin signed for his keys. The other employees did the same. Kevin refused. I've had this key for years. Then signing for it shouldn't be difficult. I'm not one of the warehouse guys. The policy applies to everyone. He looked at the clipboard. Does it apply to you? Yes. I showed him my signature at the top. Martin stood a few feet away, restocking tape measures. Kevin glanced at him, took the pen, and signed. I placed the clipboard in the office. It was a small thing, but everyone saw it. Kevin could complain about me privately. On the sales floor, he had followed the same rule as everyone else. At 4, I took Dad's suit to the cleaner and drove to Mom's house. She was at the dining table with flower catalogs spread around her. A vase of lilies had already arrived from one of Dad's suppliers. Their smell filled the room. "Those are too white," she said when I walked in. "They're lilies. I know what they are. I mean the funeral flowers. Alan sent pictures." I set the cleaner's receipt beside her. "Which ones do you want?" "I don't know. You have to choose." "What would you choose?" "The yellow roses with greenery. Your father wasn't a yellow rose person. What kind of flower person was he?" She frowned at the catalog, maybe the red arrangement. "Then choose red. Red might look harsh." I sat across from her. "Mom, pick one." She closed the catalog. "I don't like your tone. I've been making decisions all day. This one belongs to you." Her eyes filled, though no tears fell. "I can't believe we're choosing flowers for him." I waited. After a minute, she opened the catalog again and pointed to a simple arrangement with red roses and dark leaves. "That one. I'll tell Alan." She nodded. For once, I didn't make the choice and let her criticize it afterward. I called Alan from the table and confirmed the arrangement. He asked whether the eulogy packet would be ready the next afternoon. I thought I had until Saturday morning. I can take it then, but I'd like time to check the lectern setup. I'll have it to you Friday evening. Mom looked relieved when I ended the call. "Good," she said. "One less thing. I haven't written it yet. You'll get it done." She gathered the flower catalogs into a stack. "Kevin says you embarrassed him in front of the employees. I asked him to sign the key log. He said you took away his computer access. I corrected his access. Why now? Because he tried to discount an order below cost. Maybe he had a reason." I asked. He didn't. Mom pressed her fingers against her forehead. "Can you let small things go until after the funeral? Losing money isn't a small thing. It was one order. It was one order today." She pushed back from the table. "Your father trusted Kevin with customers. He trusted me to keep the store solvent. Why does everything have to become a comparison? Because you keep asking me to ignore what Kevin does. I'm asking you not to punish him while he's grieving." I adjusted his computer permissions. I didn't punish him. She stood and carried the flower catalogs to the counter. "You don't understand your brother. I understand him well enough. No, you don't. He feels responsible now. For what? For the store. For me. For the family." I leaned back in the chair. "Why does he feel responsible for the store?" Mom began straightening papers on the counter. "Your father talked to him. About becoming president?" Her hand stopped. There was my answer. I waited until she turned around. "What did Dad tell him?" "I don't know every word. Tell me the words you do know. Why are you doing this now?" "Because Kevin contacted one of our suppliers 3 hours after Dad died and said a leadership transition had started." Mom looked surprised. "He did?" "Yes." "Well, he probably thought he was helping. He asked the supplier to send our prices and terms directly to him. Your father wanted Kevin to take a larger role. That isn't the same as being president." She looked past me toward the hallway. "Peter said Kevin would carry on the business. When?" "They had several conversations." "Were you there?" "For some." "What did Dad actually promise him?" Mom walked back to the table and sat down. He said that when the time came, Kevin would be the public leader. He would handle relationships and represent the Foster name. And what would I do? You would keep running operations. The answer came easily. She had said it to herself before. So Kevin would be president, and I would do the job. That's not fair. It's exactly what you just described. You don't like sales. You don't like speeches. You've always preferred working behind the scenes. I prefer the work being done correctly. See? That's what I mean. I stared at her. She honestly thought she had found the natural order of things. Did Dad tell Kevin I agreed to that arrangement? I don't know. I didn't. No one was trying to take anything from you. What title did you think I would have? Mom looked irritated now. You've never cared about titles. That isn't an answer. You would run the store like you always have. For Kevin. With Kevin. Would he be my boss? She looked down at her hands. That silence answered more than anything else she had said. I stood and walked into Dad's study. Mom followed. Sarah, don't turn this into something ugly. I opened the drawer with the store event notes and removed the yellow legal pad. I placed it on the desk and pointed to the crossed-out sentence. Did you see this before Dad gave that speech? She read it. Her expression changed, but only slightly. That was years ago. Did you see it? I may have. Why was it crossed out? You'd have to ask your father. I can't. She folded her arms. He wanted the speech to be encouraging. To Kevin. To both of you, my name was removed. You were already secure at the store. What does that mean? You knew your place there. And Kevin didn't? Kevin needed to feel that your father believed in him. I touched the black line with my finger. So Dad removed the truth because it might discourage him. It was one sentence. It was the only sentence about my work. Mom sat in the desk chair. Your father worried that public praise went to your head. I laughed once. I couldn't help it. When did he ever test that theory? That attitude is why he held back sometimes. No, don't do that. Do what? Use my reaction to explain what happened before I reacted. Her face hardened. You're not the only person who lost someone. I know. Then stop putting your father on trial. I closed the legal pad. I'm trying to understand what he set in motion. He set up his son to continue his legacy. The words landed cleanly. Mom heard them too. She shifted in the chair. And his daughter? I asked. He trusted you to make sure it worked. There it was. Dad had not overlooked the imbalance. Mom had not misunderstood it. They had discussed a future where Kevin held the title, and I continued carrying the risk. That answered the question I had written in my notebook. It also made the next question harder. Does Kevin plan to announce this at the funeral? I asked. Mom's eyes moved away from mine. People will ask what happens to the store. That's a yes. He wants to reassure everyone. He is not president. Not yet. Not ever. Mom stared at me. I had spoken too quickly. For a second, the room was completely quiet. What does that mean? She asked. It means Dad couldn't appoint him by conversation. He founded that store. That doesn't answer me. He built it. It was his decision. I picked up the legal pad and returned it to the drawer. I'm telling you now, Kevin cannot announce himself as president. You don't get to order him around at his own father's funeral. I'm not talking about the funeral. I'm talking about the company. You're being cruel. I'm preventing him from making a false statement in front of our employees and suppliers. Mom stood. You will not humiliate your brother. Then tell him not to claim a title he doesn't have. He will have it. No. She searched my face. I could see the question forming. I also saw the moment she decided she didn't want the answer. You're tired, she said. Go home. I need Dad's personal notes for the eulogy. They're in the top desk drawer. I found a small stack of index cards held together with a rubber band. Dad had written reminders about his parents, the original store, and people he wanted thanked at future events. I put them in my bag. Mom stood beside the desk. Finish the speech, she said. Let Kevin handle the announcement. No? Sarah. I won't write an announcement for him. I won't approve one, and I won't let him use company letterhead. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Your father would be ashamed of how you're behaving. I looked at the photograph of Kevin beside the lamp. Maybe. I carried the index cards to my car. Before I reached the end of the driveway, Kevin called. "Mom says you're trying to stop me from speaking. You're giving the eulogy. And afterward, I'm going to tell people the store is staying in good hands. You can say the store will remain open. I'm going to tell them I'm taking over as president. You don't have that authority. I don't need your permission." "Yes, you do." He laughed quietly. "Sunday, after I honor Dad, I'm going to make it official. You can stand beside me or you can sit there and look bitter. That part is your choice." The call ended. I stayed parked outside Mom's house with Dad's index cards on the passenger seat. The funeral was 3 days away. Kevin had chosen the room, the audience, and the moment when he planned to claim my company. Mom had chosen his side before I had even shown her there was another one. I put the car in reverse, then changed my mind and drove back to the store. The building was dark except for the security light over the loading door. I let myself in, reset the alarm, and carried Dad's index cards into the office. The cards were less useful than I had hoped. One said, "Thanks Southwest Fasteners for 40 years. Another said, "Tell story about first cash register." A third had 3 names I didn't recognize, and the words helped during flood. Dad had written reminders for himself, not complete memories. He assumed he would still be there to explain them. Near the bottom of the stack, I found a card marked Store History, inherited in 1980. Roof leak first winter, added contractor counter. Sarah has exact dates. I read the last line twice. Even in his private notes, I was the place where he stored details he didn't want to remember himself. I opened my eulogy notebook and began writing. I wrote about the old brass register, the one that stuck whenever the weather turned cold. I wrote about Dad keeping bent nails in a coffee can beneath the counter. I wrote about the morning he drove across town before sunrise because a plumber needed one valve to restore water in an apartment building. Those were stories I had lived. Kevin had been present for some of them. He had simply never been the one opening the store. My phone buzzed at 11:20. Kevin had sent one line. "Send me the speech when you're done," I replied. "I'll deliver the completed packet to Alan." His answer came immediately. "I need to review what I'm saying. Then write something." The dots appeared on the screen, disappeared, and appeared again. "Mom said you agreed to help. I'm preparing a eulogy. I'm not writing your business announcement." He called instead of replying. I let it ring twice before answering. "You're being childish," he said. "I'm working. On my speech. On Dad's eulogy. That I'm giving." "Yes? So send me the draft. It isn't finished." "When will it be finished?" "Tomorrow. I need time to make it sound like me." I looked at the first page in my notebook. "Tell me one specific memory about Dad. Not this again." "I'll put it in." He was silent. I waited. Finally, he said, "The fishing trip. We never took a fishing trip. He took me." "When?" "I don't remember the year." "How old were you?" "Why does that matter?" "Because I need enough detail to write the story." Kevin exhaled. "We went to Lake Roberts. It rained. Dad forgot the tent poles." That sounded possible. "What happened?" "We slept in the truck." "All night?" "Most of it." "What did Dad say?" "How would I remember that?" "You called it a specific memory. It was 30 years ago. Then I can write that you remembered the rain and sleeping in the truck." "Fine." His voice softened slightly. "See? That's good. Put in something about him teaching me patience." "Did he?" "Sarah, I'll write the part you gave me and send the draft." "No." The softness disappeared. "You're enjoying this? I'm trying to finish before Alan's deadline. I'll talk to him myself." He ended the call. I stayed at the office until nearly 2 in the morning. When I finally went home, I locked the eulogy notebook in my desk. Friday began with 2 suppliers calling before the store opened. The first wanted to know whether future purchase orders should go to Kevin. The second had received a message inviting him to the next chapter of Foster leadership after the funeral. Kevin had not changed any accounts. He had widened his announcement. I asked both suppliers to keep existing contacts in place. Then I sent a short email from the official store address. Foster Hardware remains open under its current management and procedures. Please direct operational questions to me. I didn't mention Dad's ownership. I didn't mention Kevin. I only stated what was true. At 9, Kevin walked through the front door holding his phone. What is this? The store email. You send it to my contacts. I send it to company suppliers. You're telling people I'm not involved. It says nothing about you. That's the problem. Martin was at the counter, counting a register drawer. Kevin lowered his voice. I'm supposed to be the one reassuring people. You can reassure your customers that their orders will arrive. I'm talking about leadership. You aren't authorized to speak for company leadership. Dad authorized me. Then show me something. He held up his phone. I don't carry family conversations around like evidence. No, you carry them around like permission. Martin's counting stopped. Kevin noticed and turned toward him. Do you mind? Martin closed the drawer. I'm done. He carried the cash tray into the office and set it in the safe compartment. Kevin watched me lock it. Did you change the safe combination? He asked. You never had it. Dad did. Dad's access ended when he died. Kevin's face tightened. You hear yourself, right? Yes. You sound like a machine. The cash still has to be secured. Our father is dead. And the store is open. He stepped away from the counter. I'm going to the Civic Hall. What for? Alan needs my title for the program. He needs your name. We'll see. 20 minutes later, Alan called. His tone was careful. I have Kevin here with me. I assumed you might. What change? He wants to be listed as president of Foster Hardware. No. Alan paused. I'm not involved in the company, he said. I only need the correct wording. The correct wording is Kevin Foster, son. Kevin's voice came from somewhere near Alan. Put me on speaker. Alan said, You already are. Sarah, this program is about Dad. Then why are you putting a job title on it? Suppliers will be there. That doesn't answer me. It shows continuity. It shows a title you don't hold. Alan spoke before Kevin could. I can remove all business titles. That would be the cleanest option. Yes, I said. No, Kevin said. Alan waited. I could picture him standing in the Civic Hall office, pen in hand, wondering how much of our family problem he was expected to print. Alan, I said, please list family relationships only. That is my recommendation, he said. I'll do that. Kevin said something I couldn't make out. Alan continued. I also need one person to approve the final program and deliver the speech packet. At the moment, I'm receiving different instructions. I'll handle both, I said. Fine. Kevin's voice sharpened. Why her? Because she arranged the service, Alan said. I'm giving the eulogy, and Sarah is preparing it. I need one completed packet, not separate pages. Then I'll bring it. No, I said. There was a short silence. Alan cleared his throat. Sarah can deliver it when she comes to help with the room this evening. Fine, Kevin said. Do whatever you want. The call ended. I looked through the office window. Martin was standing beside a shelf of work gloves. He really tried to put President in the funeral program, he asked. Yes. Can he do that? No. Martin nodded slowly. Okay. It was the first time he had asked me directly. It was also the first time I answered without softening it. By noon, the printed programs were approved without company titles. Alan emailed the final proof to me, and I saved it. That was the useful result. Kevin's claim would not appear on paper. The cost arrived before lunch. Mom called after Kevin told her what happened. You had his title removed. He doesn't have that title. Your father chose him. Choosing a word doesn't make it legally or operationally true. Why are you hiding behind technical language? I'm not hiding. You're using Alan to control your brother at his own father's service. Alan asked for the correct program. You should have let Kevin have this one thing. It isn't one thing. He contacted suppliers. He tried to change an account. He asked for the master key. Now he wants the funeral program to name him president. Mom went quiet. I continued before she could turn each act into a separate misunderstanding. He is building a public claim. I'm not helping him do it. Then what are you going to do at the funeral? Bury Dad. Her breath caught. I regretted the sentence as soon as I said it, but I didn't take it back. Be at the Civic Hall by 5, she said. The reception tables need covers. Will Kevin be there? He's speaking. He needs time to prepare. So no. He'll bring the photograph. That was something at least. At 5, I arrived at Grant County Civic Hall with tablecloths, coffee supplies, boxes of paper cups, and the approved programs. Alan had arranged the chairs in wide rows facing the lectern. The room looked larger when it was empty. Mom stood near the front, moving a vase 2 inches at a time. These tables are too close together, she said. They're where Alan marked them. People won't be able to walk through. I set down the boxes. Then we'll move one. We lifted the end of a table and shifted it toward the wall. Mom let go before I was ready. The metal leg struck the floor. Careful, she said. I bent down and locked the leg into place. For the next hour, I covered tables, arranged cups, checked extension cords, and helped Alan test the microphone. Every physical task had a clear finish. I found that calming. Alan opened the lectern. Inside was a black folder with 2 pockets. The speech goes here, he said, touching the right side. I'll check the pages and place them in order. Once the service begins, nobody else handles the packet. Good. Kevin asked whether he could rehearse with it tonight. It isn't ready. Alan looked at me. Will it be ready by tomorrow morning? Yes. I'll meet you here at 10. He lowered his voice. I'm not taking sides. I do need to know that the words at this lectern are approved by the person who prepared them. They will be. The side doors opened. Kevin came in carrying nothing. Mom looked behind him. Where's the photograph? He stopped. I thought Sarah was getting it. No, I said. Mom asked you. I've been on calls. The photo is at the store. He looked at his watch. We can get it tomorrow. Alan needs it tonight for the entrance display, Mom said. Kevin turned to me. You have keys. So do you. He stared at me. I returned to the reception table and opened another package of cups. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Kevin pulled his keys from his pocket. Fine. He drove to the store. Mom didn't ask me to go after him. Alan didn't rearrange the schedule. We kept working. 25 minutes later, Kevin returned with Dad's framed photograph. He gave it to Alan, who placed it on the display table near the entrance. The room had functioned without me rescuing the forgotten task. Nothing collapsed. Kevin came to the lectern while Alan was adjusting the microphone. Where's the speech? He asked. At the store, I said. I want it tonight. You'll receive it here. I need to practice. You can practice tomorrow after Alan checks the packet. His eyes moved from me to the black folder inside the lectern. You don't trust me with a few pages? I'm following Alan's process. Kevin looked at Alan. Alan closed the lectern. Sarah will deliver the complete packet to me, he said. After I receive it, it stays here. Kevin nodded as though he accepted that. Then he looked at my bag, where the eulogy notebook would have been if I hadn't left it locked in the office. For the first time, I understood that Kevin wasn't only trying to control what happened after the funeral. He'd started paying attention to the speech itself. I locked the notebook in my desk before leaving the Civic Hall. Kevin followed me into the parking lot. You're really not going to let me see it? You'll see it tomorrow. What if I want to change something? Tell me a memory tonight. I'll decide whether it belongs. You'll decide. I'm the one writing it. He stopped beside my car. You agreed to help me. I agreed to prepare Dad's eulogy. Same thing. No, it isn't. He folded his arms. You always have to own the process. I looked at him. That's an interesting choice of words. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. He stepped closer. I know you think Dad depended on you more. You handled schedules and bills. Fine. But there are parts of him you didn't know. Then write about those parts. I'm not good at writing. You don't have to be. Say what happened. That's what you're for. He said it without cruelty. That made it worse. I got into my car. Kevin rested one hand on the open door. Mom wants you at the house. Why? She wants to talk before you do any more damage. To what? He released the door. You'll find out. Mom had left the porch light on. Kevin arrived behind me and parked along the curb. Inside, the dining table was covered with condolence cards. Mom had arranged them in neat rows. She pointed toward 2 chairs. Sit down. I remained standing. I need to finish the speech. This won't take long. Kevin took a chair. I sat across from him. Mom held one of Dad's index cards between her fingers. You took these from the study to write the eulogy. They're your father's personal papers. You told me where they were. I expected you to bring them back. I will after I finish. Kevin reached across the table. I can use them. I kept the stack in my bag. You didn't know what they referred to, so explain them. That would be writing the speech. Mom closed her eyes briefly. This is exactly what I'm talking about. What are you talking about? You're withholding things. Like what? Information, access, the program title, Kevin's computer. I didn't remove his computer access. You know what I mean. Yes. You mean I stopped him from using authority he doesn't have. Kevin leaned forward. Dad wanted me to have it. Dad wanted a lot of things. He wanted me as president. Did he use that word? Yes. The answer came quickly. Mom looked at him, then at me. Peter discussed it with both of us, she said. When? Over the last year. Why wasn't I included? You were busy running the store. I waited for her to hear herself. She didn't. What exactly did Dad say would happen? I asked. Kevin answered. He said I would represent the company and lead its future. That's not the same as owning it. I didn't say owning. No, you said taking over. Mom placed the condolence card back in its row. Your father didn't separate everything the way you do. He separated titles from work. That's enough, she said. No, I want the complete plan. Kevin looked at Mom. She rubbed her fingertips together. Peter thought Kevin would become president, she said. You would continue overseeing daily operations. Would Kevin control my salary? Kevin sat back. Why are we talking about your salary? Would you be my boss? I'd be president. That isn't an answer. Presidents generally lead employees. I turned to Mom. And you expected me to agree? We expected you to put the family first. Did Dad think I would object? Mom's silence lasted too long. What did he say? I asked. He said you might get caught up in paperwork. Paperwork, ownership forms, corporate rules, things like that. My face went cold. Dad knew those things weren't details. He knew exactly what he had signed 5 years earlier. What else? I asked. Mom looked uncomfortable. He said the store mattered too much to you for you to walk away. There it was. Dad hadn't believed I would agree. He believed I would stay anyway. Kevin glanced between us. What paperwork? Nothing you need to worry about, Mom told him. That was probably the same phrase Dad had used. Kevin looked at me. Is there some problem with the company records? The records are accurate. Then what is she talking about? Ask her. Mom shook her head. This is why Peter wanted the transition handled carefully. Sarah turned simple things into a test. I stood. A transition into what? Your brother leading the business, with me doing the work because I care too much to leave. No one said that. You just did. I said your father trusted you to protect Kevin from the results of his own decisions. Kevin pushed his chair back. I'm sitting right here. I know. You've always thought you were better than me. I think you tried to discount an order below cost yesterday. That isn't what I mean. It's what I mean. Mom stood between us. Stop it. Both of you. Kevin walked into the kitchen. Mom lowered her voice. He's under a lot of pressure. So am I. You handle pressure better. That doesn't make mine free. She touched the back of a chair. After the funeral, things will settle. How? Kevin will have a purpose. You'll have the store. I'll have help with the house. I looked at her. Help from whom? You already manage the bills. Dad's bills. My bills now. The sentence sat between us. You expect me to keep doing that? I don't understand why you're asking. Because Kevin is supposed to lead the family. This isn't about leadership. It becomes about details when you want me to do it. Mom's expression hardened. You're making me feel like a burden 2 days after my husband died. I offered to teach you how to pay them. I don't need a lesson. I need my daughter. What does that mean when you say it? Her mouth opened, then closed. Kevin returned with a glass of water. Mom looked at him. Your sister thinks helping me is beneath her now. That isn't what I said. Kevin drank half the water, then pay the bills. I stared at him. He shrugged. You already know how. That was the true scale of it. Kevin would inherit the public role. I would keep the store stable, protect his salary, correct his orders, manage Mom's household, prepare the funeral, and write the words he would deliver. They didn't see those as separate favors. They saw them as my place in the family. Dad had counted on my attachment to the store. Mom counted on my discomfort with saying no. Kevin counted on both. I had thought victory meant stopping an unauthorized account change and getting through Sunday without a scene. That wasn't enough anymore. If I kept everything stable while allowing the same arrangement to continue, I would be proving Dad right about me. The store did matter too much for me to abandon it. That didn't mean Kevin got to stand on top of my work. If you've ever realized your help had become someone else's plan for your life, leave the word enough in the comments. I picked up my bag. I'll finish the eulogy, I said. I'll deliver it to Alan. I'll manage the store closure and make sure the employees are paid. Mom crossed her arms. And after Sunday, you'll learn the bill system. Her eyes widened. You can't be serious. I'll show you where everything is. I'll write down the steps. I just lost Peter. I'm not asking you to do it tonight. When then? Next week. That is unbelievably cold. I've paid 2 bills this week. Nothing is being shut off. Kevin set down his glass. You're punishing her because you're mad at me. No, I'm separating things you've all kept tied together. Mom's face changed. Give me your house key. I looked at her. If you're going to treat this home like another account you manage, you don't need a key, Kevin said. Mom, no, she said. She wants boundaries. She can have them. The key was on my ring between the store key and my apartment key. I worked it loose and placed it on the table. The sound was small. Mom stared at it. For a moment, I thought she might tell me to take it back. She didn't. Bring the index cards tomorrow, she said. I will. And don't come to the house before the service unless I call. I nodded. That was the cost of saying one bill would eventually become her responsibility. I lost access to the house where I had spent most of my adult life fixing things. Kevin looked uncomfortable, but he didn't object again. I walked outside with my bag over my shoulder. My hand felt strange without the house key on the ring. There was an empty space where it had rubbed against the others for years. At the store, the alarm showed that no one had entered since closing. I went into the office, opened the notebook, and set Dad's index cards beside it. I wrote until my fingers cramped. I included Kevin's fishing story exactly as he had given it. I didn't invent the lesson about patience. I wrote that Dad forgot the tent poles, it rained, and father and son slept in the truck. I included Mom's story about meeting Dad near the original store. I included the supplier names from his cards. Then I wrote the parts only I remembered. Dad teaching me to count change. Dad calling me before sunrise when the roof leaked. Dad sitting beside me during the worst year, signing the papers that kept our credit lines open. I stopped at that sentence. There were things I could not include without exposing the ownership transfer. I still believed the funeral should honor him. I didn't want to turn a eulogy into a corporate correction, but I was no longer willing to write myself out of it. I typed each page, printed the draft, and read it aloud in the empty office. My voice sounded steady until I reached the final section. The ending thanked the people who had stood beside Dad. It sounded polite and false. I deleted it. At 4 a.m, I still didn't have the last page. I locked the typed draft in the safe beside the ownership file and placed the notebook in my desk. Before leaving, I wrote one new sentence on a blank sheet. A family can call work invisible, but that does not mean no one is doing it. I read it once, turned the page face down, and went home. I slept for less than 3 hours. At 7, I was back at the store with clean clothes, wet hair, and coffee strong enough to hurt my stomach. The funeral was the next morning. Alan needed the finished packet by 10. I opened the safe and removed the typed draft. The final sheet was still blank. For years, I had thought restraint meant leaving myself out. I could mention Kevin's fishing trip, Mom's early marriage, Dad's customers, and the history of the store. If I wrote about my own work, I was making things about me. That was the rule, though nobody called it one. I took the face-down sheet from my desk and turned it over. The sentence I had written at 4 in the morning looked different after 2 hours of sleep. It wasn't angry, it was accurate. I found a clean sheet of heavy white paper and a blue pen. Then I wrote the final page by hand. I wrote about the work nobody saw when the store opened normally each morning. Someone checked the locks, corrected the invoices, covered the empty shift, and made sure payroll cleared. Families worked the same way. Someone remembered the appointments, paid the bill, brought the food, and carried the information everyone else expected to find waiting. I wrote that I had done those things beside Dad for 12 years. I didn't say he had treated me fairly. I didn't say Kevin had earned anything. I wrote that I loved my father and that love did not make invisible work less real. At the bottom, I signed Sarah Foster. My handwriting tilted slightly to the right. Anyone who had received a birthday card, store note, or schedule correction from me would recognize it. I placed the handwritten page behind the typed pages and counted them twice. Then I made a copy for myself and locked that copy in the safe. At 8, the staff arrived. I asked everyone to meet near the paint counter before we opened. Kevin wasn't there yet. Martin stood beside the register with his arms folded. The others gathered around him, still wearing jackets and holding coffee cups. "I'll keep this short," I said. "We're closing tomorrow for the funeral. Everyone scheduled will receive normal pay. Monday's schedule stays the same. One employee asked whether the delivery truck would still leave that afternoon. Yes. The Paulson order goes out at noon." "What about purchase approvals?" Martin asked. "They still come to me. No account, schedule, price, or access changes are authorized unless I approve them in writing." Nobody looked confused. That told me how much they had already heard. "If customers ask what happens to the store," I continued, "tell them we remain open under current management. Don't speculate about titles." The front bell rang. Kevin walked in while I was still speaking. He looked around the group. "What's this? A staff update. Without me? You're late." He checked his watch. "It's 8:03. We open at 8. He set his coffee on the counter. What did I miss? I repeated the instructions. Kevin listened with a half smile. When I finished, he stepped beside me. "I'm sure Sarah didn't mean to make this sound uncertain," he said. "There will be changes, but nobody needs to worry." I didn't move. "What changes?" Martin asked. Kevin looked pleased to have the question. "Leadership changes." "Approved by whom?" I asked. He ignored me. "I'll explain everything after the funeral." "No," I said. "You won't announce company changes to employees without authorization." The room went quiet. Kevin turned toward me. "You really want to do this in front of everyone?" "I'm correcting what you just said." He looked at the employees. "Could we have a minute?" Nobody moved. I said, "Please start opening." Martin went to the register. The others returned to their departments. Within seconds, the usual sounds filled the store. Drawers opened, carts rolled, the front lights came on. Kevin stayed beside the paint counter. "You made me look like an idiot. You interrupted an operational meeting to announce changes that don't exist." I was reassuring them. They weren't worried until you started talking. His face reddened. "You've poisoned them against me." "No. They know who gives them correct information." That was the visible success. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't shown a document. I gave clear instructions, and the staff followed them. Kevin saw it happen. He followed me into the office and shut the door. "After tomorrow, this changes. Your employment doesn't change after tomorrow. My employment. Yes, you keep using that word. It's the relationship you have with the company. I'm Peter Foster's son. That's your relationship with Dad. This is a family business. Family businesses still have job duties. Kevin looked at the safe. His eyes stayed there long enough for me to notice. "What's in that folder you keep checking?" he asked. "Company records." "Dad's records?" "Company records." I should have access. No. As president, I will. You are not president. He moved closer to the safe. Did Dad sign something? I kept my expression still. What do you think he signed? I'm asking you. I'm not responsible for filling gaps in what he told you. Kevin's eyes shifted back to me. That's what this is about. You found some technical thing, and now you think you can erase what he wanted. I picked up the eulogy packet. I have to meet Alan. Is that the speech? Yes. Let me see it. No. He reached out. I moved the packet against my chest. Kevin stopped before touching it. You think I'm going to steal it? I think Alan asked for the complete packet. I'm the person reading it. You can read it tomorrow. What's on the last page? My grip tightened slightly. An ending. Typed? Why does that matter? Because the edge looks different. He had noticed the heavier paper. I placed the packet inside a large envelope and sealed it. You'll receive it from Alan. Kevin laughed without humor. You've turned Dad's funeral into a security operation. No, I've followed instructions. Whose? Alan's. He stepped aside. This better not embarrass me. If you read what's on the pages, it won't. He looked at the sealed envelope. That was the first time I gave him a clear path around humiliation. He could read the eulogy honestly. He could say I had prepared it. He could skip the business announcement. Nothing happening next was unavoidable. At the Civic Hall, Alan met me near the side entrance. He unlocked the lectern while I opened the envelope. I need to check the page order, he said. I know. We stood beside the front row as he read the first line of each page. When he reached the handwritten sheet, he paused. You wrote this? Yes. Do you want Kevin reading it? I want him to read the complete eulogy. Alan looked down at my signature. Has he seen this page? No. Has he seen any of it? No. Alan returned the pages to order. I'm going to note that you delivered 9 typed pages and 1 handwritten page at 10:12 this morning. Thank you. He wrote the count and time on a small receipt form. We both signed it. He gave me the yellow copy. That form didn't prove ownership of the store. It wasn't meant to. It proved one simple thing. I had delivered the entire eulogy, including the final handwritten page, before Kevin touched it. Alan placed the packet in the black lectern folder and locked the front panel. The key stays with me, he said. Good. The side door opened. Kevin entered with Mom behind him. Mom wore sunglasses even though we were indoors. Kevin looked directly at the lectern. You already brought it, he said. Yes. I thought we were meeting at 10. You weren't part of the meeting. Mom removed her sunglasses. Can we not start? I'm not starting anything, Kevin said. I'm trying to prepare. Alan closed his notebook. I'll give you the packet 30 minutes before the service. I need it today. I don't release final materials after they've been checked. Kevin looked at me. Did she tell you to say that? It's my procedure, Alan said. Mom stepped between us. Alan, we appreciate everything you're doing. Kevin is nervous. Couldn't he have a copy? I can make a copy if Sarah approves it. They both turned toward me. No, I said. Mom stared. Why? Because the final packet is complete. Kevin can read it tomorrow. He wants to practice. He had days to write his own remarks. Kevin put his hands on his hips. So this is punishment. No. This is the version I prepared. If you don't want to read it, you can write your own. The funeral is tomorrow. I know. Mom lowered her voice. Give him the copy. No. She took one step closer. After everything you said last night, you're still doing this. Last night is why I'm doing this. Kevin looked from me to Alan. Fine. I'll read it cold. That's your choice, I said. Mom turned away. She walked toward the first row and sat down. Kevin remained beside the lectern. Dad would hate this, he said. He would hate the funeral. He would hate you controlling it. I arranged the funeral because Mom told me to. I wrote the speech because you told me to. I delivered it because Alan told me to. You make yourself sound innocent. I'm stating what happened. He glanced at the locked panel. Tomorrow, when I'm standing there, you won't be able to control what I say. No, that was true. He could ignore the pages. He could announce himself as president. He could tell the room anything he wanted. What had changed was that I no longer planned to repair his words in private afterward. Alan asked us to leave so he could finish preparing the room. Mom walked out without speaking to me. Kevin stayed behind long enough to watch Alan check the lectern lock again. In the parking lot, he came to my car. You've been talking to the employees about me. I gave them operating instructions. You're building some kind of case. I'm keeping the store functional. Same thing with you. He pointed toward my bag. What was that yellow paper Alan gave you? A receipt for the packet. You got a receipt for a speech. Yes. His mouth tightened. That was when my new strategy became visible to him. I wasn't arguing from memory anymore. I was keeping the record, controlling access to what belonged under my authority, and refusing to hand him the work before he used it. Kevin stepped away from my car. Mom's right, he said. You're planning something. I didn't answer. He took out his phone before I had even pulled from the parking space. He was calling Mom. She called me before I reached the end of the block. What did you give Alan? She asked. The eulogy packet. What's in it? The speech you asked me to write. Kevin says there's a handwritten page. There is. Why? Because I wrote the ending by hand. What does it say? You'll hear it tomorrow. That is not an acceptable answer. I pulled into an empty parking space and turned off the engine. You told me to prepare the eulogy. I prepared it. You're keeping it from us. It's secured at the Civic Hall. You got a receipt. Yes. Who gets receipts for funeral speeches? Someone whose brother keeps trying to take the pages. Mom went quiet. Then she said, You're done making decisions for the service. I looked through the windshield at the dry grass beside the road. What does that mean? It means Alan will speak to me from now on. You asked me to arrange everything, and I'm taking that responsibility back. Are you changing the flowers? This isn't about flowers. Are you changing the program? No. Is Kevin still reading the speech I wrote? Another silence. Yes. So you're removing me from the arrangements but keeping my work. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? You've become too controlling. Kevin and I will handle tomorrow. What do you need me to do? Attend your father's funeral. Nothing else? I think you've done enough. She ended the call. For several minutes, I sat without moving. I had spent 3 days doing what Mom assigned. I had called Alan, prepared the obituary, notified the staff, arranged flowers, covered tables, paid bills, found Dad's suit, and written the eulogy. The moment I stopped obeying Kevin, I became the problem. Alan called 10 minutes later. I'm sorry to bother you, he said. Diane asked that I treat her as the only family contact from this point forward. She just told me, I need to follow the widow's instruction on service decisions. I understand. The speech packet remains in the lectern. She did not ask me to remove it. Did Kevin ask to see it? Yes. What did you tell him? That it will remain secured until the service. I let out a breath. Thank you. Diane also asked me not to discuss further arrangements with you. I understand that too. Alan lowered his voice. For clarity, the packet I received from you is still complete. Nobody has opened the lectern since I locked it. That's all I needed to know. I'll see you tomorrow. He ended the call. I had lost the role that gave me access to the room. I could no longer check the lectern, confirm the final setup, or correct a change before the service. The packet was still there, but it was no longer under my supervision. When I returned to Foster Hardware, Kevin's truck was parked near the loading door. He and Mom were waiting in the office. Martin stood at the front counter. He looked at me, then toward the office. I walked inside. Mom had removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red. "Close the door," she said. I did. Kevin sat in my chair. Mom stood beside the filing cabinet. "Get up," I told him. He looked at Mom. She said, "Please don't start. It's my desk." Kevin stood slowly. I placed my bag on the desk. "Why are you here?" Mom touched the top drawer of the filing cabinet. "Your father's business records belong with his things." "No. Company records stay at the company. Kevin says you have documents in the safe. We have many documents in the safe. Peter's documents. Some have his name on them. I want them. You don't know what you're asking for. I'm his wife. This is a business office." Kevin leaned against the wall. "Show her the folder." I looked at him. "What folder?" "The one you keep checking." Mom's eyes moved toward the safe. "What is he talking about?" "Corporate records." "What kind?" "The kind that remains secured." "Does it have something to do with who runs the store?" Kevin asked. I didn't answer. Mom stepped closer. "Open the safe." "No." Her expression changed. "Sarah, open it. You don't have authority over company records. I was married to the founder for 45 years. And I'm telling you, those records aren't household property." Kevin watched me carefully. "You found something after Dad died," he said. "No." "Then why are you acting like this?" "I have treated those records the same way for years. What did he sign?" I moved my bag away from him. "Leave the office." Mom stared at me. "You're throwing me out? I'm asking both of you to leave the employee office. I'm your mother." "Yes. My husband died 3 days ago." "Yes. And you're hiding his papers from me." "They are not hidden. They are secured where they belong." Kevin opened the door. Martin was still at the counter. 2 other employees were close enough to hear. "Everybody should know what she's doing," Kevin said. "Close the door," I told him. He stepped into the store instead. "My sister has locked up Dad's records and won't let his own widow see them." Martin looked at me. I walked out of the office. "Kevin, go home." He faced the employees. "She removed my system access. She contacted suppliers behind my back. Now she's holding company documents. Those are normal management actions," I said. "According to you." "Yes, according to the person responsible for them." Mom came out behind me. "Sarah, stop." I turned to her. "What do you want me to do? Give Kevin access?" "No. Let him prepare for the role his father promised." "No. Then at least show me what you're holding." "Not here." Kevin laughed. "Of course not here. She doesn't want witnesses." Martin took 1 step forward. "I saw Sarah checking those files before Peter died," he said. Kevin turned toward him. "This is family business. You brought it onto the sales floor," Martin said. That was the only thing he said. It helped, but it also gave Kevin a new person to blame. "You've got him trained well," Kevin said to me. Martin's face tightened. "Go home," I repeated. Mom picked up her purse. "We're leaving." She looked at the employees, then at me. I apologized that everyone had to see this. "Sarah is having a very difficult time with her father's death." The words were calm. That made them effective. She wasn't explaining my actions. She was discrediting them. Kevin held the front door for her. Before following, he turned back. "Monday morning. We settle this." He left. The bell rang above the door. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then one employee asked whether the Paulson delivery had gone out. I checked the wall clock. It should be loading now. Martin went to the warehouse. I followed him. The order was still on the floor. Kevin had pulled the assigned driver into the office earlier to discuss Monday's transition meeting. The truck had not been loaded. Paulson's crew expected delivery within 40 minutes. I called the customer and asked for an extra hour. Then Martin and I loaded the order ourselves. The boxes of fasteners were easy. The cases of adhesive were not. Each one caught against the lip of the truck bed. By the time we finished, sweat had soaked through the back of my shirt. My right wrist hurt, and there was a dark bruise forming near my elbow. Martin closed the truck door. "I'm sorry I said something," he told me. "You told the truth. He's going to come after me now. I won't let him affect your job. Can you promise that?" Yes. That promise carried weight. If I kept Kevin employed after Sunday, I would be asking Martin and everyone else to work under a man who had just used the sales floor for a family accusation. If I removed Kevin, I would be cutting off his monthly salary days after Dad's death. There was no version left where I protected everyone from discomfort. The truck left 58 minutes late. Paulson accepted the order, but we had to waive the delivery charge. That was the first direct financial loss caused by Kevin's transition campaign. It wasn't large enough to hurt the company. It was large enough to enter in the system under my name. At closing, Martin handed me the key log. "Kevin didn't return his key," he said. "I'll deal with it Monday." He said there's a meeting. There isn't. Martin nodded, but he looked tired. After he left, I locked the front door and returned to the office. My phone showed several new messages. 2 relatives asked whether I was all right. One said Mom had told them grief was making me territorial about the store. Kevin had sent a group message to the employees. "Please arrive early Monday. We'll discuss Dad's vision and the future leadership of Foster Hardware." I read it twice. He had taken my silence and filled it with his own story. I could still avoid a public confrontation. I could sit through the funeral, let Kevin make his announcement, and correct him privately on Monday. That would protect Dad's reputation. It might preserve some relationship with Mom. It would also allow employees, suppliers, relatives, and customers to believe Kevin had inherited authority from our father. When I corrected him later, I would look like the sister who overturned Dad's dying wish with paperwork. That was the position Dad had left me in. I opened the safe. The gray folder sat beside the copy of the eulogy. I removed the ownership agreement and read Dad's signature. 5 years earlier, he had sold me every share because the company could not survive unless I assumed its debts. He kept the founder title because I let him keep it. Then he used that title to promise Kevin a future that belonged to me. If I produced the file, Kevin's claim would end. So would Dad's version of the family. Mom would learn that her husband had kept the transfer from her. Kevin would learn that every conversation about becoming president had happened after Dad no longer owned a single share. The employees would learn why I had allowed them to praise the wrong successor for years. I would not leave that room looking untouched. I placed the corporate ownership file in my bag. Then I printed Kevin's group message and added it to the folder. Before I turned off the office light, I sent one reply to the staff. "Report at your normal times Monday. Any employment or leadership changes will be communicated by me in writing." Kevin would see it. Mom might hear about it before the funeral. I understood the price now. Using my authority meant exposing the lie I had agreed to protect. It meant accepting that Mom might never forgive me for telling the truth at the moment Kevin forced it into public. I locked the safe and carried the folder home anyway. At my kitchen table, I emptied the folder under the overhead light. The stock certificate was first. It showed every Foster Hardware share in my name. Behind it was the shareholder ledger. Dad's ownership ended on the transfer date. Mine began on the same line. There was no missing share, pending gift, or future transfer. The agreement came next. Dad had sold the company to me in exchange for my assuming its debts. He retained permission to use the title of founder. The word was ceremonial. It did not give him authority to transfer shares he no longer owned. I already knew all of that. What I needed to verify was Kevin's position. I opened my laptop and signed into the payroll system. My name was the only administrator. Kevin appeared as a salaried employee earning $4,200 each month. His employment file contained his original offer letter, tax forms, benefit elections, and the same at-will acknowledgement every employee signed. There was no employment contract. There was no officer appointment. There was no board resolution naming him president. Dad had given Kevin a salary and a story. He had not given him control. I checked the payroll calendar. Kevin's final earned pay could be calculated through Sunday. If I ended his employment effective Monday, the system would stop future salary while preserving what he had already earned. I wrote the amount on a notepad and checked it twice. Then I drafted a termination letter. Kevin Foster's employment with Foster Hardware will end effective Monday. He will receive all earned pay through the effective date. I added instructions to return his key and any company property. I did not include a list of family complaints. I did not mention the funeral, the speech, or Dad's promises. The letter was about employment. I saved it without submitting the payroll change. That mattered to me. I could have ended Kevin's access that night. I could have sent the letter to his email and let him wake up unemployed on the morning of Dad's funeral. It would have stopped his Monday meeting before he reached the lectern. It also would have turned the funeral into the place where he learned I had fired him. I wasn't going to do that. If Kevin attended as my brother, read the eulogy honestly, and left company claims outside the room, his job would still exist Monday morning. I no longer wanted him at the store, but I was willing to handle that conversation privately after we buried Dad. If he used the funeral to install himself over my company, I would answer there because he had chosen the audience. That was the line I set. I printed the termination letter and placed it behind the ownership records. Next, I opened the yellow receipt Alan had given me. It showed the delivery time and the number of typed and handwritten pages. I put it in a separate pocket. The eulogy receipt could prove who prepared the packet. It could not remove Kevin from payroll. The corporate file could. I kept those purposes separate. At 8 the next morning, I called the payroll service. A representative answered after I entered the company identification number. I didn't give Kevin's name. If I end a salaried employee's at-will employment effective tomorrow, I said, can I preserve pay earned through today and stop the next salary cycle? Yes, she said. You would enter today as the final paid-through date and tomorrow as the employment end date. Does the employee receive an automatic notice? Only if you select that option. Can I prepare the change without submitting it? Yes. It will remain a draft. Who can submit it? The account administrator. Is anyone else listed with that permission? She checked. No. You are the sole administrator. That removed the last practical uncertainty. I thanked her and ended the call. The payroll service wasn't deciding whether Kevin deserved to lose his job. It confirmed what the system would do if I used authority I already held. I logged back in and prepared the change as a draft. Then I closed the laptop. Mom called at 8:30. Where are you? She asked. Home. The service starts at 11. I know. You should be at the house. You told me not to come unless you called. I'm calling. What do you need? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, I need to know you aren't planning to embarrass your brother. I'm not planning his behavior. This is not the time for word games. I'm not playing one. Kevin says you took company documents home. I secured company records. Are you bringing them to the funeral? I looked at the gray folder. Yes. Mom inhaled sharply. Why? Because Kevin said he plans to announce himself as president. Your father wanted him to. That does not make it true. You're going to wave papers around at a funeral. No. Then leave them home. I won't. Her voice dropped. If you do this, you will destroy what is left of this family. I rested my hand on the folder. Tell Kevin not to make the announcement. He has a right to honor his father's wishes. Then you're asking me to sit quietly while he claims authority over my work. I'm asking you to be his sister for one day. I have been his backup for years. That is an ugly thing to say. It's an accurate thing. Mom's breathing became uneven. I wanted to stop. I wanted to tell her I would leave the folder home and deal with everything Monday. Then I pictured the employee group message. I pictured the program title Kevin had requested. I pictured Dad's crossed-out sentence. What if he only reads the eulogy? Mom asked. Then I'll stay seated. And if he says he's president? I'll correct him. You'll humiliate him. He can avoid that. You have no compassion. I wrote his speech. That doesn't give you the right to ruin the service. I won't interrupt Dad's eulogy. Promise me. I promise I will let the eulogy be read. She noticed the limit. And afterward? That depends on Kevin. Mom went silent. When she spoke again, her voice was calm. If you expose some private paperwork in front of everyone, do not expect to come back to my house. She had already taken my key, but this was different. She was telling me the future cost. I understand, I said. You're choosing a store over your family. No, I'm refusing to give Kevin a company I already saved. What does that mean? I had come too close again. It means I'm done discussing it before the service. I ended the call. My hand shook afterward. I placed it flat against the table until it stopped. At 9, Kevin sent me a message. Mom says you're bringing a folder. If you have concerns about my title, we can handle them privately Monday. I read the sentence twice. That was the exact option I had offered him for days. I replied, "Then do not announce yourself as president today." He answered, "I'm not letting you dictate Dad's legacy." I placed the phone beside the ownership file. He didn't want privacy. He wanted silence from me and an audience for himself. I showered, dressed in a black suit, and put the gray folder inside a plain black bag. The yellow eulogy receipt went into the side pocket. Before leaving, I read the handwritten copy of the final page once more. I considered removing it. The typed pages were enough for a respectful eulogy. The handwritten ending would make Kevin's lack of authorship obvious if he tried to claim the speech. Taking it out would be easier. He could read my words, accept the praise, and no one would know. That would spare him. It would also require me to help him steal one more thing. I returned the copy to the folder. On the drive to the Civic Hall, I rehearsed the confrontation in my head. Not a speech. 3 sentences. Read the signature. You do not hold that title. Your employment ends Monday. Every version became longer if I let it. I wanted to explain the debts, Dad's request for secrecy, the years of payroll problems, and every time Kevin had been praised for work, I performed. I cut all of it. The documents could answer questions later. In the room, I only needed to correct 2 false claims and execute 1 consequence. Cars already filled most of the Civic Hall lot when I arrived. Employees parked near the side entrance. Supplier trucks and family sedans lined the curb. I stayed in my car for a minute. Through the windshield, I could see Kevin near the front doors greeting people. He wore a dark suit and Dad's silver tie clip. He shook hands with suppliers and touched people on the shoulder as they entered. He looked like the person Mom had prepared the room to see. I took the folder from my bag and checked the papers one final time. Then I put it back and went inside. Alan stood near the entrance beside Dad's photograph. He gave me a small nod. "Is the packet still complete?" I asked quietly. "Yes." "Has anyone seen the last page?" "No." I unlocked the lectern 10 minutes ago and placed the folder inside. Kevin has not received it. "Thank you. I'm supposed to direct questions to Diane. I'm not asking you to take my side. I know. If anyone asks who delivered the speech, state what you personally received. I can do that." That was all I needed from him. Mom stood near the front row. Her face looked composed until she saw the bag on my shoulder. "You brought it," she said. "Yes, please don't. Tell Kevin." She looked toward him. "He won't listen to me now." That was the first time she admitted it. For years, she had told me to keep Kevin calm because she believed I could. Now that I had stopped, she was meeting the same limit she had assigned me to manage. "I won't disrupt the eulogy," I said. Mom touched my sleeve. "If you do this, Peter's friends will know he lied. I know. They'll judge him." "Maybe. Can you live with that?" I looked at Dad's photograph near the entrance. He had signed the transfer. He had asked for secrecy. He had continued promising Kevin a business that was no longer his. Keeping those choices hidden had become my unpaid responsibility, too. "Yes," I said. Mom removed her hand. We took our seats in the front row. The gray folder rested inside my bag at my feet. The eulogy waited in the lectern. Kevin stood near the aisle, accepting condolences and approval. I had refused the quickest punishment. I had given him a clear way to leave both claims unmade. All that remained was his choice. Alan walked to the lectern at 11 and asked everyone to sit. The room settled slowly. Folding chairs scraped against the floor. Someone near the back coughed. The air conditioning made the flowers tremble against the wall. Alan spoke about Dad's life in Silver City. He mentioned the store. his marriage, and the people who had come to know him across the counter at Foster Hardware. Then he invited Kevin forward. Mom placed one hand over mine. I didn't hold it. Kevin buttoned his suit jacket and walked to the lectern. Alan stepped aside and gave him the black folder. Kevin opened it. He looked down at the first page, then out at the room. "I wrote this last night," he said. "I wanted Dad's friends to hear what he meant to this family." Mom's hand tightened around mine. I could have corrected him then. I didn't. Kevin had committed to the first lie before reading one word. I wanted him to have every opportunity to stop on his own. He began with the story about the brass register. He read my description of Dad warming the metal drawer with his hands on cold mornings. He read the line about how Dad could identify a regular customer by the sound of the bell and the pace of their footsteps. People smiled. Kevin looked up after each reaction. He read the fishing story next. That part belonged to him. He added one sentence about Dad teaching him patience, though I had left it out. Mom wiped her eyes. Then Kevin returned to my pages. He read about the roof leak and changed Sarah and I to we. He read about the plumber who needed a valve before sunrise. Kevin had not been there, but he described the drive across town as if he had sat beside Dad. Gary nodded from the second row. I watched him accept each nod. The worst part wasn't that Kevin sounded convincing. It was that he sounded moved. My memories gave him access to grief he hadn't been able to describe himself. He paused in the right places. His voice caught when the room expected it to. The typed pages made him look like the son Mom had promised everyone he was. Halfway through, Kevin closed the folder for a moment. "I didn't realize how hard this would be to write," he said. A woman behind me whispered, "Bless him." Mom leaned toward me. "Please," she breathed. I looked ahead. Kevin opened the folder again. He read Dad's store history. He thanked the suppliers named on the index cards. He described the employees as an extended family. Martin sat near the aisle. His face stayed still. When Kevin read that Dad had kept payroll current during difficult years, Martin looked at me. Kevin didn't. He turned another page. Only 2 typed sheets remained before the handwritten ending. His confidence grew as he reached them. "My father taught me that leadership isn't about a title," he read. "It's about accepting responsibility when people depend on you." That sentence sounded different in his mouth. I had written it about Dad. Kevin looked up and let the room assume he meant himself too. Then he reached the final typed page. He thanked Mom for building a life with Dad. He thanked the employees for keeping the store open during Dad's declining health. He thanked the customers for trusting the Foster name. He turned the page. The heavier sheet made a soft scraping sound against the folder. Kevin looked at the handwriting. His mouth stopped moving. From my seat, I could see his eyes move down the page. He read far enough to recognize that the voice had changed. He glanced toward me. I stayed seated. The room waited. Kevin cleared his throat and began. There is another kind of work my father understood, even when he did not always name it. He paused. The next paragraph described checking the store locks before sunrise and correcting invoices after everyone else had gone home. Kevin skipped 2 lines. I knew because his eyes moved farther down the page before he continued. Families also survive because someone remembers what needs to be done. His voice had lost its rhythm. He read about arranging appointments, paying bills, bringing meals, and keeping information where everyone expected to find it. People began looking toward me. Kevin reached the paragraph that said I had performed those duties beside Dad for 12 years. He changed I to we. The sentence that followed would not allow it. I was the daughter who opened the store when my father could no longer carry the whole day. Kevin stopped. No one moved. He looked at the page as if it had changed while he held it. Then he said, "This next part was added by Sarah. It was the first time he gave me credit." "Keep reading," I said. My voice carried farther than I expected. Kevin stared at me. Mom whispered, "Don't." I kept my eyes on him. He returned to the page. "I loved working beside you, Dad," he read. I only wish the work we did together had not needed to disappear for someone else to feel important. A few people shifted in their chairs. Kevin skipped the next sentence. Then he reached the bottom. He started to close the folder. "Read the signature," I said. His fingers tightened around the page. "Sarah," Mom said under her breath. I didn't look at her. Kevin tried to smile. "My sister contributed some family memories. You said you wrote the speech." "I did." She helped. Alan stood near the side wall. I asked, "Who delivered the complete packet?" Every head turned toward him. Alan stepped forward. "Sarah delivered it to me yesterday morning." Kevin's face changed. She typed up my notes. Alan remained calm. I received 9 typed pages and 1 handwritten page from Sarah at 10:12. The packet stayed locked in the lectern until this morning. Kevin did not receive it before the service. He wasn't deciding who deserved credit. He stated what he had personally handled. I took the yellow receipt from my bag and held it in my lap. Kevin looked down at the handwritten page again. "Read the name," I said. His voice dropped. "Sarah Foster." The room went completely quiet. He could have acknowledged it then. He didn't. Kevin put the page back in the folder and straightened his shoulders. "Grief affects people differently," he said. "Sarah wanted to make sure her contribution was recognized. That's fine." Several employees looked at one another. Kevin continued before anyone could respond. "What matters today is Dad's legacy. He built something that will survive him." Mom released my hand. "Kevin," she said softly. He didn't hear her, or chose not to. "As his son, I'm honored to carry that legacy forward. Starting Monday, I will serve as president of Foster Hardware." There was the second claim. He made it from Dad's lectern in front of our employees, suppliers, relatives, and friends. This time, I stood. Kevin looked almost relieved. He had expected an emotional argument. He knew how to win those. I lifted the gray folder from my bag. "I asked Kevin not to make a company announcement here," I said. "He chose to make one, so I need to correct it here." Mom's face had gone pale. Kevin gripped the sides of the lectern. "Sit down, Sarah." "No." I opened the corporate file. 5 years ago, Foster Hardware was carrying debts it could not continue supporting. Dad sold every share of the company to me in exchange for my assuming those debts. A sound moved through the room. It wasn't a gasp. It was quieter and less theatrical. People stopped breathing at the same time. Kevin stared at me. "What are you talking about?" I removed the stock certificate and shareholder ledger. I have been the sole shareholder since the transfer. Dad retained the ceremonial title of founder. He did not retain ownership. Mom stood beside me. "Peter sold you the store?" "Yes. You never told me." "He asked me not to." Her eyes moved to Dad's photograph. Kevin left the lectern and came down 1 step. "That's not possible. It is documented. Dad said the store was mine. Dad no longer owned it when he said that." His face reddened. "You tricked him." "No. The company was close to failing. I assumed the debt and kept it operating. You took advantage of him." I held up the agreement. "His signature is here. The stock certificate and shareholder ledger match it." Gary stood from the second row, though he stayed beside his chair. "Is that why you were the account officer?" he asked. "Yes." Martin looked at Kevin. Then he looked at me. The belief in the room changed in a visible way. People who had spent the morning approaching Kevin as the successor stopped watching him for direction. Kevin saw it too. He pointed at the folder. "Paper doesn't erase what Dad wanted. No, it establishes what he had authority to give. He wanted me as president. Only the owner can give you authority over the company. You're my sister. Yes, you can appoint me. I will not." His mouth opened slightly. Until that moment, I think Kevin still believed I would preserve his position after exposing the transfer. He thought being family was a guarantee I would absorb the cost. I removed the termination letter. "You are a salaried, at-will employee of Foster Hardware. Your employment ends effective Monday. You will receive all pay earned through today. Your future salary and access will stop after that." Mom grabbed my sleeve. "You can't fire him at his father's funeral." I prepared this before the service. I was willing to handle it privately if he kept the company out of the funeral. Kevin came down from the lectern. This is revenge. This is a consequence of claiming authority you don't have and interfering with operations you were hired to support. You've been planning to steal my job. There was never a president's job waiting for you. I held out the letter. He didn't take it. I placed it on the front row chair beside his folded program. You cannot do this, he said. I own every share. I control payroll. Your employment is ordinary and at will. It ends Monday. Mom looked at the people behind us. Please, she said. Not here. I lowered my voice. I'm not canceling Dad's funeral. I'm not asking anyone to leave. Kevin made 2 public claims. I corrected them. Kevin looked toward Alan. Alan did not move. Then Kevin looked at the employees. Nobody stepped forward. Martin finally asked, Do we report at our normal times Monday? Yes, I said. The schedule stays the same. He nodded. That was the practical moment when power changed. Not when I raised the stock certificate. Not when Kevin's name appeared on the termination letter. It changed when an employee asked who controlled Monday, and the room waited for my answer. Alan walked back to the lectern. We can continue the service when the family is ready, he said. I sat down. Mom remained standing for several seconds. Then she lowered herself into the chair beside me. Kevin stayed near the lectern, facing a room that no longer believed either title he had claimed. Kevin moved to an empty chair at the end of the front row. He didn't take the termination letter with him. It remained on the seat where I had placed it. Alan waited until everyone settled. Then he spoke for a few minutes about grief, memory, and the people Dad had left behind. He did not mention the company. The service continued. That mattered to me. Dad's funeral did not end with a corporate argument. People still stood for the closing music. They still filed past his photograph. They still hugged Mom and told stories about him near the reception tables. The truth changed the room, but it did not erase the reason everyone had come. Kevin disappeared while Alan was speaking. I saw the side door close. Mom saw it too. She stayed in her chair until the final music ended. At the reception, people approached me carefully. Some offered condolences and nothing else. I appreciated those people most. Others asked questions. Gary stopped beside the coffee table. I didn't know Peter had transferred the store, he said. Most people didn't. Did he ask you to keep it quiet? Yes. Gary looked toward Dad's photograph. That explains a few things. I didn't ask which things. Our supplier account stays the same, I said. I understand. He shook my hand and left. 2 employees asked whether their benefits would change. No, I told them. Nothing about your employment changes. Martin picked up the termination letter from the empty chair and brought it to me. He left this. I'll give him another copy. Are you all right? I will be. He nodded. You handled Monday. Yes. That was enough for him. Mom stood near the entrance, accepting condolences. She spoke to everyone except me. When the room began clearing, Alan unlocked the lectern and removed the black folder. He brought it to me. I believe these belong with you, he said. I took out the typed pages and the handwritten ending. Thank you for keeping them secure. That's my job. He handed me a copy of his packet record. Kevin asked me in the hallway whether I would tell people he had provided the original notes. What did you say? I told him I could only confirm what I received. That's fair. Alan closed the folder. I'm sorry this happened during the service. So am I. He gave a small nod and went to help his staff fold the first row of chairs. Mom came toward me after the last relative left. You got what you wanted, she said. I placed the eulogy pages inside my bag. What do you think I wanted? Everyone knows now. Yes. Peter trusted you. He asked me to support a lie. He was trying to protect his son. From knowing I owned the company, from feeling like a failure. And what was I being protected from? Mom looked away. You could have told us 5 years ago. I wanted to. Nobody stopped you. Dad asked me not to disclose it. You chose him over the rest of us. Yes, I said. I did. The answer surprised her. I had protected Dad's image because I wanted his trust to mean something. I had let Mom and Kevin believe a false future because telling the truth would have cost me the only private sign that Dad saw me as capable. I had participated. That didn't make their actions harmless. It made the loss harder to assign to one person. Mom's eyes filled. Was any part of my marriage real to you? That isn't a question I can answer. He sold the store and never told me. I know. You knew every day. Yes. She touched the back of a chair. I don't know who you are. You know exactly what I do. That has always been the problem. She turned toward the door. I took Dad's index cards from my bag. These belong to you. She accepted them without looking at me. Don't come to the house, she said. I won't, and don't call. All right. She left through the front doors with Dad's cards held against her chest. I carried the eulogy pages to my car. Kevin had sent 9 messages. The first called the stock transfer fraudulent. The next 3 demanded copies of every corporate record. Another said Dad had promised him the company and a court would understand. The last message said, "You destroyed Dad's funeral because you couldn't stand seeing me speak for him." I replied once. Your employment ends Monday. Return your store key and company property. I will provide copies of documents relevant to your employment. I did not debate the inheritance he had imagined. There was no inheritance to debate. On Monday, I arrived at Foster Hardware at 6:30. I changed Kevin's alarm code, disabled his system login, and removed his access to customer pricing. Then I submitted the payroll change I had prepared. His monthly salary of $4,200 stopped after his final earned pay. The system generated a confirmation and placed it in his employment file. I ran the rest of payroll normally. 15 employees received what they were owed. No one's check carried the cost of my family's argument. At 7:45, Kevin tried his code at the front entrance. The alarm panel rejected it. He knocked on the glass. I let him in. He wore the same dark jeans and brown boots he had worn earlier in the week. He carried the termination letter, folded into quarters. You locked me out. Your employment ended today. You said effective Monday. It is Monday. You didn't give me a meeting. We can meet now. Martin was in the warehouse. No one else had arrived. Kevin followed me into the office. A cardboard box containing his personal items sat beside the desk. There wasn't much. 2 coffee mugs, a framed picture of him and Dad, a jacket, and a stack of business cards. He picked up the picture. You put this in a box. It was on company property. He built this place. Yes. And you fired his son the day after his funeral. Yes. Kevin looked at me as though he had expected me to soften the sentence. I'm contesting it. You can request copies of your employment records. I'm contesting the sale. That is separate from your employment. Dad wasn't in his right mind. He negotiated the transfer over several meetings. He understood it. You made him choose. The debts made the choice urgent. He would have given it to me eventually. He couldn't give you what he had already sold. Kevin put the picture in the box. I could have run it. You were employed here for years. You never let me lead. You tried to change a supplier contact hours after Dad died. You delayed a customer delivery to discuss your title. You announced yourself as president without checking who owned the company. That was Dad's plan. It was not mine. He picked up the box. You think the employees respect you now? I think they know who signs their paychecks. That isn't respect. No, it's a fact. He moved toward the door. Your key, I said. He stopped. I don't have it. You signed the log. I lost it. Then the cost of changing the lock will be recorded. He glared at me, reached into his pocket and dropped the key on the desk. You always have to get the last thing. I need company property returned. He left with the box. The front bell rang as he walked out. At 8, the employees arrived. Martin gathered everyone near the paint counter without being asked. I stood in the same place where Kevin had interrupted me Saturday. Kevin no longer works for Foster Hardware, I said. I have owned the company for 5 years. Daily operations remain the same. One employee asked who would handle Kevin's customer accounts. I will divide them by the end of the day. Another asked whether we should discuss what happened at the funeral. No. You don't owe me a family conversation at work." People looked relieved. We opened on time. The first customer needed a replacement faucet cartridge. Martin helped him find it. The delivery truck left at 9. A supplier invoice came in wrong and I corrected it. The store kept functioning. That afternoon, I made a binder for Mom. I printed instructions for the electric bill, water bill, insurance payments, and household checking account. I removed my saved login from her accounts and wrote the customer service numbers beside each due date. I drove to her house after work. My key was gone, so I left the binder inside the screen door with a note. "Everything currently due is paid. Future steps are marked. Call the companies if you need account help." I didn't add an apology. I didn't ask her to call me. By the end of the week, Kevin's customers had been reassigned. 2 chose to follow him if he found another sales job. The rest stayed. Mom paid the next electric bill herself. I knew because the confirmation email stopped coming to my address. Kevin did not return to the store. For 3 weeks, neither of them spoke to me. Then Mom called on a Tuesday evening. Her name appeared on my phone, and I let it ring once before I answered. "Hello?" Mom took a breath. "I paid the electric bill," she said. "I know. How do you know?" The confirmation stopped coming to me. "Oh." There was a short silence. "I paid the water too," she said. "I had to call because I locked myself out of the website. Did they help you?" "Yes." "Good." She cleared her throat. "I'm not calling because I need anything." I waited. "I've been reading the binder," she said. "You had already paid everything due." "Yes, you didn't leave me with a problem." "No, I told people you abandoned me." I sat down at my kitchen table. "What are you saying now? That you didn't?" Her voice shook slightly. "I was angry at Peter. Then I made you responsible for what he hid because you were the person I could reach. That doesn't explain everything." "I know." She paused again. "I'm sorry I took your house key. I'm sorry I told you not to come back. And I'm sorry I expected you to keep doing things because you had always done them." I looked at the empty place on my key ring. "Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to fix this for me." That was the first apology she gave me without attaching a request. Mom asked whether I would meet her for coffee. I chose a small place near downtown instead of her house. "I can meet Saturday morning," I said. "I'll be there." She didn't ask me to pick her up. On Saturday, she arrived before me. The binder sat on the table beside her purse. Colored tabs stuck out along the edges. "I added the insurance renewal," she said. "It comes due in November. You found the date." It was on the statement. She sounded almost offended by how simple it was. We ordered coffee. Mom paid for her own. For the first 10 minutes, we talked about weather and a leak under her kitchen sink. I waited for her to ask me to call someone. Instead, she said, "I found a plumber in Dad's address book. He's coming Tuesday." "That's good. I didn't know what to ask him." "You figured it out." I told him where the leak was. That was enough. Then Mom looked down at her cup. "Kevin says the store should still be his. He's wrong. He says Peter promised. Dad did promise. Dad just didn't have the authority to keep that promise. I understand that now. Do you?" She nodded. "I read the copy of the transfer you sent me. I had mailed it after the funeral because she had a right to understand what Dad concealed. I sent only the agreement and a short note. I did not send the company's financial records. Peter sold it because of the debts," she said. "Yes. Were they that bad?" "Yes. Why didn't he tell me? You'd have to ask him." She accepted the answer this time. "I told Kevin the same thing," she said. "He got angry. That belongs between you and Kevin. I know. We stayed for 40 minutes. When we left, Mom didn't ask when I would come to the house. She said, 'I'd like to call you next week. Is that all right?' Yes." Limited contact began that way. One call became another. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I called back the next day. Mom learned to manage the household account. She scheduled repairs. She renewed the insurance. When she didn't understand a bill, she called the number printed on it before calling me. The first time she invited me to dinner, I said no. She answered, "All right, maybe another time." No sigh. No mention of family. No task waiting behind the invitation. A month later, I accepted. She cooked instead of asking me to bring food. The kitchen looked different without Dad's cup by the sink. My old house key was not returned, and I didn't ask for it. We ate at the table for an hour. Kevin wasn't there. Mom did not use me to carry messages between them. That was another condition of contact. If he wants to speak to me, I told her, he can call me himself. It took him almost 4 months. By then, he had found outside sales work with a regional building supplier. I learned about it from a customer who mentioned seeing him in Las Cruces. I hadn't made a call for him. I hadn't given him a reference. He applied, interviewed, and got the position without me arranging any part of it. Kevin called the store one afternoon. "Can we talk somewhere?" he asked. "About what?" "The funeral. If you want your job back, the answer is no." "I know." We met after work at a coffee shop on the edge of town. He looked thinner. He wore a shirt with his new company's logo over the pocket. "How's the job?" I asked. "A lot of driving. You always liked outside sales." He gave a small shrug. "They track mileage better than Dad did." I almost smiled. Kevin looked down at his coffee. "I told people I wrote the speech," he said. "Yes." I knew I didn't. "Yes. I thought because you wrote it for me, it became mine. It didn't. I know that now." "What changed?" "I got to that last page." He rubbed one thumb against the side of the cup. "I saw your handwriting and I knew I couldn't keep pretending. Then I tried anyway. That's what happened. I'm sorry." I let the apology sit. Kevin continued. "I also acted like Dad's promise made the store mine. I never asked to see paperwork. I didn't want paperwork. Why? Because paperwork could say no. That was more honest than anything he had told me during the funeral week. Dad kept saying I would lead it, he said. Mom kept saying the same thing. I believed them because it was easier than asking what you had been doing all those years. You saw what I was doing. I saw it. I just called it details. I looked through the window at traffic passing on the road. Did Mom ask you to call me? No. Are you asking for anything? He hesitated. I thought about asking for another chance at the store. The answer would still be no. I know. Then why meet? Kevin folded his hands around the cup. Because I stole the speech, and I tried to take the company without checking whether it was mine. I wanted to say both things without Mom translating for me. That was the admission I needed. It did not restore his job. It did not give him access to the store or return his monthly salary. I agreed that we could speak occasionally. I did not agree to discuss employment again. Kevin tested that boundary once, 2 months later. He called and said his new employer wanted someone to manage a larger sales territory. Dad always said I was good with people, he said. You are good with people. I could bring those skills back to Foster someday. No. He became quiet. Still no? Still no. All right. He didn't call Mom afterward to pressure me. He accepted the answer and took the larger territory with his own company. That action mattered more than repeating the apology. At Foster Hardware, the employee schedule remained stable. Payroll cleared normally. We recovered the lost delivery charge within a week, and the Paulson account stayed with us. I kept Dad's photograph near the front entrance. I did not remove the founder title from the frame. He had founded the version of the store I inherited. That remained true. I also stopped letting the title hide who ran it. When suppliers asked for the owner, employees directed them to me. When someone called Kevin the successor, I corrected the mistake without explaining the funeral. Kevin no longer works here, I said. I own the company. Most people accepted that in one sentence. The handwritten eulogy page stayed in my office. For a while, I kept it in the safe beside the corporate file. Eventually, I realized it didn't belong there. The stock certificate protected the company. The page marked something different. I had spent years believing that belonging meant being useful enough that my family would eventually acknowledge me. I kept taking assignments because I wanted the next completed task to earn what the last one had not. It never did. The truth did not give me the father I wished I had. It gave me a life that no longer required his private approval. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and tell me which city you're watching from. One morning in early fall, I arrived before the employees. Juniper Street was quiet. The sun had just reached the top of the Civic Hall in the distance, and the store windows reflected a pale strip of sky. I parked near the loading door and walked around to the front. Dad's photograph was visible through the glass. So was the paint counter where I had finally told the staff whose instructions mattered. Inside my bag, the handwritten page rested between two plain sheets of paper. The blue ink had not faded. My signature remained clear at the bottom. I no longer needed it locked beside the proof that I owned the company. No one was trying to claim it. Kevin had admitted what he did. Mom had stopped asking me to disappear so he could feel secure. The page could return to the place where I did my daily work. I unlocked Foster Hardware alone, placed the handwritten page inside my desk, and turned the front door sign to open.